just a short time ago, and only the June 3rd minutes are available.
Right, I did see that in your email earlier. Okay, overview of the Zoom meetings, operation procedure, rules of participation, mute your microphone, be recognized by the chair, etc. Public forum, 5 minutes per person for things that are not on the agenda. Anybody, anything that you want to talk about that's not here? Seeing none. Department head roundtable. Bruce, let's start with you.
So we had a busy 3rd and 4th. Overall, things went well. There were a few parking issues, more this year than last year. But overall, things went smooth. Can't thank the officers enough for the time that they put in. We could have used more help, but we got through it.
Bruce, for the parking, was it more amount of people or signage, or what were your thoughts on that?
So at the end where the sign was at the Lord's Prayer Rock, people decided that because they couldn't get around it, they just left their cars there. So there was like 15 cars that we had to kind of work around. We did have a tow truck on the way for one, which was taking us more than an hour to find the owners, but they finally showed up. So we got to do something different with signage down there.
Bruce, you said you could have used more help. Did any of your part-timers work, or just?
No, we just had the
you.
4 full-timers.
Okay. How many part-timers do we have anyway?
We currently have 3.
3. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. Brett, I see you're on. You're up. Brett?
Yeah, he's getting there.
Working on the mute button there. Good evening, everybody. Just kind of a piggyback onto Bruce's comments regarding the Independence Day holiday. Certainly, it's times like this when, those who are able to step up, give a little extra time for duties, not otherwise required within their, scope of their work. So, from filling dunking booth tanks to obviously participating in the parade, providing standby coverage during the annual fireworks event on the 3rd. But yeah, it's one more example of time away from family. So really always appreciate those who are able to give the extra time and help out and to, help save the community just a few bucks. So other than that, we have our annual Vermont State Firefighters Association convention that's coming up. Addison County is hosting that event. I believe it's the last weekend in July. I don't know if Peaker's on. Am I right? Last weekend in July. I'm not staring at my calendar.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So it's always a long-standing tradition. And I know the Bristol Fire Department, were able to pull together 4 firefighters to represent the department, the town, to participate in the annual, what they call muster games or firefighter games, where it's just a great opportunity for some camaraderie amongst, fellow fire departments from around the state to have a little fun, a little friendly competition. They'll recognize firefighters that weekend for, annual awards that they give out. And there's obviously lots of other business that will take place, but that's what's going on at the fire department right now. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Jill, you want to give us a quick water thing?
I would say for water, probably the biggest thing is we've got the temporary connection in over on Plank Road for the first development of Heffernan's, and on a Wednesday, the 8-inch T is going in for J Drive. So that's kind of a big project. The road will be shut down for at least a portion of the day because the water line's on the opposite side of the road. And hopefully that goes really well. So after that, another development will be connected.
Good. How are we doing on the survey, the lead lines?
No one is willingly providing any information. It's like pulling teeth out. So we've got the think we've got 13 left on the west side inside of the project area. And maybe 70 left on the east side. So I know we've met the criteria of the minimum requirements. We just haven't kind of gotten the level of participation that I would like to see. So we'll probably do one more set of door hangers on the east side. And possibly one more on the 13 on the west side. Because it would be nice to know if there's any other galvanized lines or lead lines that need to get replaced whilst a construction project is coming through.
Too bad you can't say, call me, or we're gonna send you a fine. Or turn
Well,
off the-
there are edits,
allowing
there
them
are-
to-
There are a massive amount of edits that have been made to the ordinance that I believe will be proposed to you guys in the coming weeks that kind of address the fact that there's not much enforcement there's some enforcement in the current ordinance, but there's the ability to do a bit more in the revised ordinance in a positive way to keep the water system in compliance with coming mandates.
Jill, would you be able to send a list of those outstanding to us for us to look at?
Yeah, because you guys might know, like I met with
Right.
Justin a couple weeks ago and he knew all kinds of people on the west side that he helped me get in contact with. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, more eyes on that might help.
Yeah, go up to the door, knock on a Saturday morning and said, hey, you mind if we look at your service line?
Yeah, I've got a pile of them in my truck and a pile of them on my counter, and we can put a pile of them right at the town office too.
Be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No, everything else is just in motion.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Eric,
There.
Eric kind of gave us a little bit of a briefing.
Yeah, basically, everybody know, we got our new street sweeper. Pickup room for the loader, we went out and swept the streets with it, and I think it did a really good job on them. Just a learning curve, of course, something new to learn on and to get more proficient with, so that'll be good. We did have a few little washes over this rain that we got Saturday. We went up, took care of some of them up in the upper notch today. Tomorrow will be on me and then the down. Just continuing on with normal mowing and maintenance. We gotta get cutouts cleaned out up in the upper notch for the more rain coming Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I'm right there full, it's going down the side of the road, so we gotta get them open back up again tomorrow.
Is any, not more from you, any discussion about the tree still on Hartscrabble Road in the cemetery? I'm afraid that's gonna
I have,
fall on
I
someone.
reminded John about it, and he thanked me for reminding him, he forgot, and I don't know if he forgot again.
Because I saw him all a couple weeks ago and asked him to consider again, take a good hard look at those trees in the front that got all the wire in them. So we could do something with them.
Or for the broom, it's
Oh,
roads.
God, wait, just for the tree in the cemetery, should we close the cemetery? Do we get the tree out of there bigger? You go by it every day, you
Yeah.
see it?
I don't like it. I mean, I brought it up as a concern because it's been that way. I mean, especially with all the wind we have. I don't think it's safe to be in there.
So the next stage be to talk to John about that.
We just want to know if there's anything else to cut while they're in there.
Do we
I
have
hate to have
somebody
them.
lined up to be able to do it?
Well, I hate to have them come in, cut that one, and then have him say there are more that need to go.
Right. So
And
he
have to
takes,
have them
he
come
takes a
back.
look and advises us.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the,
That's
Whether
the
it's
danger.
that tree, right, that tree and then the
That's the
fence, 'cause
danger.
we do have fence for that, right?
Right.
Okay. Eric, for the sweeper, it's just the roads, right, for the new one that you have?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the sidewalk.
Is sidewalk sweeping still gonna happen? I know it was done.
No, not
Okay.
this year.
Okay.
The reason I'm saying no is because we didn't really, I think we only spread like twice this winter.
Yeah, they look pretty good.
And I looked at them several different times, and like you say, they look good.
Yeah.
So I wasn't gonna bother sweeping them this year.
Okay.
We really didn't put much on them. And we, which I think I'm gonna go with again next year, but we put a finer sand and then added more salt.
Okay.
So we're running like a 90-10 blend right now.
Okay.
And then we're gonna use the contractor sand, you know, the stony stuff, the real fine stones.
All right, good,
So, yeah.
thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, sir. Regular business, consider a request to revisit the new childcare contribution, contribution tax from treasurer Justin Boobier is recommending.
Well, Justin couldn't be here tonight. He did send an email memo a short time ago. But the gist of it is that it turns out as of this afternoon, Bristol is the only community statewide that opted not to be responsible for the full 40.44% of this new tax credit. And instead, the select board had voted to put that other, I think, 0.11% on the employees. The reason.
Which the law says.
The law says,
We
but
can.
evidently, and I'll just, it turns out, we thought Manchester was the other one or other two. Bristol's one, and then they were the other one, but turns out I think Manchester changed their mind. So this is what Justin's memo said. Out of all the towns that use NEMRIC, Bristol is now the only one having the 0.0011% paid for by the employees. They actually said it isn't worth the money in setup alone. The amount for last year would have been less than $120. The additional month for the town, all the employees. And it takes about 40 minutes to set up an employee with this new deduction. As we have to create the deduction for each person for this project, that is going to be a large amount of time. And it's just gonna cost the town more in time and other things not getting done than to save $120 a year.
Per employee,
Total, everything, everybody.
that's not what we got at work.
That's just the 0.11%.
Yeah,
Not the whole
0.0011%.
Right, yeah.
Most of Bristol salaries are on the low end of average for their counterparts in Vermont, and this is further in that gap. But yet there. So largely it's the administrative time to set up the 0.11% formula into every single
You
employee.
still
setup.
have to go through and set up the
4.4.
.44.
It's the one thing that was the town. It's not individual employees, it's just the town, so I think it's much easier to set up.
Yeah,
That
it's just
seems like that's what he
a
said.
flat formula.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with the town doing it. I watched the video in January 8th when we talked about this. We had a long discussion. You opened with, I think the town should do this. And then we talked and talked and talked. And eventually we came up with the reason we changed this, or we decided to go this way, was that we felt that taxpayers are getting taxed already in their own jobs, and then you're being taxed again. But I think my position would be, because it's such a small amount and that it's going to cost the town more to set this up, to do it this way, it doesn't make sense. We're then, are you spending more and taxing, having an increased payment to be able to set that up, to run that for that very small amount? So it doesn't seem to make sense.
Does it set up? It's gonna have to be set up it doesn't have to be set up every year. Once you set
No,
it
but I
up.
think it's just the time to set up for each employee
I just think
but once.
if you don't have any skin in the game, you don't care what your costs are. And each employee's gonna have a little bit. We got a memo at work from HR, $220 a year gonna come out of, basically, if you make this amount, come out of your check. 0.11%. It's the VTCCC program on your check now. And
That $120 has got to be around.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
It may be per employee.
Maybe so, let's see. The amount for last year would have been less than $120 additional a month for the town,
per month,
a month.
a month. So is that,
So it'd be $1,200 a year. It'd be 12 times 12, $1,400 a year is what it's. It's not $120 a year, it's $1,400 a year. As on last year's numbers.
Total
Total
or per
per total employees.
total employees?
Do we know why Manchester changed their system?
I only learned that this afternoon,
Okay.
going through this,
Do we know why the other towns decided not? to?
because the administrative effort.
Okay.
And for
well,
others, everybody, each community has to do their own analysis, but apparently most concluded that it's not consequential.
Right.
I think,
Budget wise.
well, it's administrative that Nemrick doesn't have a system that
Right,
put
that's
it in.
because they're antiquated.
Right.
I mean, I agree with your principle, but I also agree that we don't want to die on the principle, right? We want to save money. So if we can save money by just paying it versus doing all of
Well,
the
it's,
programming.
it's $1,400 this year if it's an hour and employee. This year, we'd probably pay for it.
Just remember from 6 to 7 or 6:30 to 7, we discussed about, we just gave raises.
Yeah.
Raises.
I was just gonna say,
And we
okay,
just said,
so we
boy,
pay it and then we take it off in a raise. I mean, you're,
we're gonna take it all off.
I just, it's like you're, I don't know.
I just, you know,
That's right,
The-
it's salary and benefits.
the
right?
general
Right,
public
it's a
is,
benefit.
the general public is paying twice in my mind.
Right, I pay mine.
Right,
I have to pay
I
I
mine.
agree with you with the principle. What I'm saying is, do we want to charge taxpayers for the principle? Like if we have to decide, I don't know how much it would cost to do it, but if it's a lot less, then it would be a savings.
Once it's set up, it's set up.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a one-time cost.
and it's not gonna change, like this is gonna
And I
be
can't
it.
imagine it's gonna take an hour and a half an employee, once the first one is done. It's just, it's gotta be. the
Well, he's gotta
same.
set up two, right? Well, he's gotta set up the main, the 0.4, 0.33, and then the 0.11. The 0.33 is probably the easy one to do. It's the 0.11 that you have to do for each employee.
Well, 0.33 is for each employee too,
Yeah, but that's a town that can be set up like the overall
for the
number,
total.
right? I don't think you probably have to set that
Okay.
up per employee.
I think you do
But I
because
don't
it's
know that.
33% out of, almost,
Yeah, I don't know.
the dog catcher, we don't have one, but if it was a dog catcher with part-time position employee versus administrator or somebody else, make more, 33% on the administrator is more out of the pay than the
Well, it's
part-time
33% out of the total, whatever the total salary line is.
per employee.
Well, it's still gonna
Per
be the same.
salary,
It'd be
Yeah, so
30,
the salary.
it'd be 0.33 of the. of
total
the-
salary. of the town.
Because that,
Up for that pay period, yes.
So we
I mean,
heard
I think personally, I talk about this more. There are a lot of other towns who are doing it. If we're the only one that Nemrick knows, and Nemrick serves a lot of towns, if we're the only one doing it, I think. we
but
should
that's
question
also their way of saying, okay, we don't have a way to set this up easily and therefore you have to do it. And we don't wanna do it.
But we also don't. I mean, Joel's talking about his business has that, but your business has a much larger employment base, has HR. It's not a small
Doesn't use them.
municipality, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if Nemrick is the bottleneck. I think it's just the size of municipalities and how many staff they have to do something like this.
How many employees do we have total? 14 full-time and many part-time plus seasonal.
You have to include the firefighters make enough money to.
I'm
Plus
sure
the pay.
they would probably be included, yeah. So there's 35 of those. Guys have almost as many employees as my office does.
So what's your thoughts, people?
I just get frustrated because we keep getting asked to pay. And then we get our employees who are frustrated because it's like, you keep, like, when our insurance go up, you make us pay a portion of it and you're not, whatever you've given me for raise, now I'm just paying back and I get it because it happens to me too. It's like, okay, you just gave me a 2% raise and then you just took it out and then some
Healthcare,
for my
yeah.
healthcare premium. So I really went backwards instead of forwards. The state frustrates me because I'm listening to the numbers that they're giving and people who make how much money are entitled to this healthcare benefit and I'm like, or this daycare benefit, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I don't even make it now. And they're giving them a benefit. It just burns my,
What's your thoughts then, people? We can stay the way we were in January, or we can rescind it. It's on the agenda. I entertain a motion.
Well, if we don't act on it, Either that or we gotta vote
Correct.
it down, either that or we gotta vote it down, one of the two, if we don't want it. And I'm not in favor of picking up the extra.
Let's take a straw poll. Yeah,
I would change it at the town.
Jessica?
I'm on the fence. Talk to everybody else first.
You wouldn't change it? I don't wanna change it. I'll set it up. It's $100 employee to set it up. It's set up and it's set. Maybe the rest of the towns will look and say, they did it. Maybe it's not that hard. Maybe we'll do it.
See, it worked out for me. I didn't have to make up my mind.
He could have been quiet and let you decide, and then he could have been the struggle.
Okay. Mhm.
So
Leave it alone?
so we
Stay-
can either leave it alone, or we can make the motion to do it and vote it down. However you wanna do it. At least that way the minutes would show that we looked at it.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we retain our decision from January.
There is a motion to retain or stay with the same decision that we made in January with the employees. There's a second, sorry.
If that's not a negative motion, you can do that.
There's a motion to keep the same as we talked about in January. The employees will pay 0.11% and the town will pay the 0.33, right, Michelle?
Right.
Point
It's
four-
actually
Zero,
point
zero.
zero
point
zero.
0.0033
A little bit more.
of the Vermont child care tax. Any more discussion? Hearing those, all those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Same?
Abstaining me.
Same. Voted no, yes?
Bite the bullet.
Yeah, seriously.
Abstain? Okay, 3 to 1 abstain and 1 no. 1 no and 1 abstain, okay. Bristol Fire Department presentation overview of the proposed OSHA
Can you
emergency
make
response.
Brett a co-host, please?
Sorry, Brett. Brett, you're up. Bristol Fire Department presentation overview of proposed OSHA emergency response rules and what it may mean for the VFD. You keep this to 15 minutes, chief, or?
Yeah, this is a
Very well.
long document. How detailed are you gonna be, Brett?
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
actually, what I prefer to do, I'm glad you guys all had that. You had an
Yeah.
opportunity just to skim through it. It provides a little bit more detail, but I created a bunch of notes for myself, just bulleted format, just to more or less give you all an overview of, where we are at today
Okay,
and what we could expect should this pass. And that will definitely make this brief. And I can answer any questions you have at the conclusion, if that's helpful.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it's huge. Just in
It
terms of
is
Going
huge.
through that
And
presentation.
they consider
Unbelievable.
that a high level overview of a 600 and something page
Yeah.
document. So, but I have 5 pages of bullets here, but I'm gonna fly through this. So thanks for hearing me this evening. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Peter and I both provide you a little information on the proposed rule, which is to update the 44-year-old OSHA 1910-156, what is currently called the Fire Brigade Standard, to the Emergency Services Standard. So this is really like a 30,000-foot view of that standard should it pass. And the current comment period was extended to July 22nd, I believe is the date. So it would apply to your firefighters, as we are considered employees of the town. Today, there's currently 32 of us. So one of the main things we'd have to do is establish a comprehensive emergency response plan that would provides protections for our responders. We'd have to have a comprehensive risk management plan. Our team members, our firefighters, they would each have to be put into a group, which we do today, based on where they're at in the fire service and what they want to do and are able to do. You've heard us talk about the physicals. We would need to comply with the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association's health and medical standard, which would become rule. That physical, sometimes I'm like, boy, I must be a visionary sometimes, because it was only a year ago remember reaching out to this company in New York who travels and provides physicals specifically for emergency services organizations, fire departments. They come to you, they offer their services, evenings, Saturdays. And looking at their pay sheet from a year ago, a full firefighter physical and compliance with that standard was just shy of $200. But that's every 2 years, each firefighter would be required to do that. And there's certainly many other tests they can run depending on what the outcome is of those initial physicals. But training, that's one of my major concerns. You know, I consider ourselves well-trained. You know, we here in the state of Vermont, only your career firefighters are held to the national standard of that Firefighter 1 certification you all hear us talk about all the time. It's up to individual departments and towns, authorities having jurisdiction, and that's you all in this case. They call those AHJs. You know, the town adopted a policy because we believe that we should have a minimum standard, and I think it's worked out really well. Now, the challenge is, should this pass, is that minimum standard we have today for everybody, regardless of what position you hold in the fire service, to include your fire chief, every firefighter, you know, so all of your persons who are doing the work day in and day out, they would be required to have the Firefighter 2 certification. So on top of the 225-hour class to obtain your Firefighter 1 certification, which obviously people wouldn't have to repeat that, but the additional hours associated with the Firefighter 2 component of that is approximately 70 or 80 hours. And anybody new walking in the door of the fire service would be required to take the Firefighter 1 and 2 combination class. So just add those two numbers together, and you know, that's quite an extensive training program on someone's time who, you know, is holding down a full-time job elsewhere and to pay the bills. Your fire officer, your pumping apparatus driver operators, you know, those people who operate the large vehicles with pumps on them, they would have to comply with the NFPA standard 1002, which is specifically for those emergency vehicle operators, you know, specializing in the operations of pumps. Again, it's not a class of great length. You know, I think it's approximately 60 hours. However, you know, to ask someone who has, you know, 20, 30, 40 years of experience under their belt, who is a master at those skills, to go take a class just for the sake of taking a class, you know, that's a big ask of those particular people. Your fire officers, your captains and lieutenants would need to be trained to a Fire Officer 1, your assistant chiefs and your deputy chiefs to a Fire Officer 2, and your fire chief to a Fire Officer 3. The state of Vermont's been offering that 1 and 2 program since the early 2000s in the state of Vermont. It's a combo class, Fire Officer 1 and 2. You know, it's always been geared towards your career fire service. It's a 3-week long program. If you were to take it, you know, 40 hours a week, it's like 2 weeks in the classroom, a week they send you home to do your 12 projects, and then another week back in the classroom. Just only 2 years ago, for the first time, they offered it in a format where a volunteer could take it. I had the opportunity to take that course. I was one of 3 volunteers in that class, and I was grateful. But, you know, here we are 29 years into the business, and I'm just getting the opportunity to take that class now. You know, Vermont is very short on instructors to deliver such programs that we all would need access to, you know, to implement and enforce these types of standards. So I would not be qualified to be your fire chief should this pass. And none of your other officers would be qualified to be an officer of any kind. So I would be qualified to be your assistant or your deputy. So vehicle preparedness and question. I'm sorry.
No, just to clarify, I spoke with the chief of training at the academy yesterday, and he said, to his knowledge, there is no one in the state that is level 3 or 4. even the career chiefs, he said that to his knowledge, there's a couple that have the NFA, but he doesn't know if that'll cross over. So, I mean, we're not the only ones in this situation.
Yeah, this isn't just Vermont. This is the rural fire service across the nation. You know, high 60% of people that work in our capacity, you know, are providing these types of services. And Vermont is just one of many states who don't even offer, as an example, this Fire Officer 3 program. So persons like myself would, you know, be required to travel out of state elsewhere. You know, you can imagine the cost associated with that. You know, just taking a training that who knows how many weeks long it is.
And the prerequisite for that training is to have all the others prior to it. Fire 1, Fire 2.
Fire instructor.
Yep.
So it just goes on and on. So, I mean,
So Brad, the comment period closes on July 22nd. So
correct.
what are folks advised to do before then?
Well, what was talked about briefly a couple of weeks ago was that it would certainly be beneficial that you all, again, are authority having jurisdiction representing your fire department. I think, and would be in our best interest, the town, to submit a comments. And I volunteered, and I haven't provided that to you yet because I still got time. That you all, the town, should send something. I think it coming from a body opposed to the individual, it just has more weight. And it can talk about, you know, our budget implications, you know, there's so many things you can talk about and emphasize the points that should this new rule pass, you know, it will have significant financial impacts on our bottom line.
Not only financial, but the
Time.
body power, the person power to actually fulfill those roles and deliver that type of protection to the community will go away. It sounds like.
I'm not gonna say it's going to go away, but there's certainly that potential, and just if it passes, it just has negative implications, you know, affecting morale across the board. You know, people are stretched so thin as it is today. And asking them to do more on top of that already is just a lot to ask of your first response community.
And also, Brett, I know you've briefed me a little bit on it, that not only the cost of what you just spoke about, but I mean, we just replaced the truck and it was in the tune of $650,000. We got it last April, you know, or so. And, you know, now we try to get 20 years out of a truck, and the new standard is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, 15 years.
That's what I'm hearing. Emergency services vehicles would need to be replaced every 15 years. And I'll lump tires into this. You know, like tires, you know, the current NFPA standard, which Bristol is able to comply with, is replacing the tires in your vehicles every 10 years. But if this new rule was to pass, you would be required to replace your tires on your emergency vehicles every 7 years. But to Joel's point regarding the cost of emergency vehicles, you know, so we, the town of Bristol, I don't think we're any different than, you know, other small departments. You know, we really try to maximize the life of our vehicles. You know, regardless of what decade they're purchased in, that moment in time, they come with a significant price tag. You know, the 1997 Spartan that was replaced, that this pumper we purchased last summer replaced, you know, at the time was a $230,000 truck. And, you know, that was a significant amount of money. But when you're keeping your pumpers, your frontline vehicles, you know, 20 to 25 years and having to replace them every 15 just to replace them because a certain amount of time has passed, I don't know how they can enforce that one, because if a vehicle passes a DOT inspection, you know, and depending on what type of vehicle is and the function it performs, you know, if it's a pumper, you know, every year we have annual pump testing done on that vehicle by a certified entity. You know, you have chassis maintenance performed on them. All this stuff is documented as part of our ISO rating, you know, when we get evaluated every 5 years. And I put this kind of in the same category with training hours, and I'll try to get to the point here real quick. So, you know, what do years measure? They just measure time. They don't measure actually what the condition is of a vehicle, just like training hours. They don't measure anything. Show me you're actually competent and proficient in a skill, and then we're good to go. But if you're just there standing in the back of the room to get an hour of training, you haven't learned anything. So I don't know how they're going to enforce some of this stuff, because again, I just don't think it's realistic to force a community, a municipality, to replace a vehicle only because it's a certain age. If that was to pass, we've already pushed our now, what is it, 17-year-old 2007 Spartan pumper tanker. That truck, by the time we have enough funds set aside based on our current annual appropriations and replacing other vehicles along the way, that truck's going to be 30 years old today. That's what we're looking at before we have adequate funding to replace it. And just based on my crystal ball I have here in my back pocket, we're looking at about $1.1 million when it's 30 years old to replace that one vehicle. And if you're following local news, that's not a big number when it comes to emergency vehicles. Municipalities not too far from us have, they're bonding for vehicles that cost more than that, because that is just what they cost. So we really would need to look at how we operate, the services we provide as a community. Maybe there's services we offer today that we may not want to offer in the future. I hate to even say that. That's one of the great things about a local fire department is we provide so many services. Like if nobody knows specifically who to call for something, they typically call us because we either want or can mitigate whatever problem it is they have, because we're pretty resourceful, or we know who to contact that can assist that particular person, who may be experiencing the worst day of their life. So yeah, these are just some of the challenges that we're potentially faced with, but again, going back to this proposed rule, and we're just running down this list and being sensitive of time here, we, the Bristol Fire Department, are in very good shape when it comes to complying with many of the standards, the national standards that would become rules. You all already support us. The taxpayers already support us. You put, the appropriate, proper fitting, compliant turnout gear, the coats and the pants and the helmets and the boots we all wear. Those people who work in that immediately dangerous to life and health atmosphere, their gear is replaced 10 years or less, because that's what the national standard says it needs to be. We clean our gear. We're pretty good about maintaining or keeping up with any decontamination. We're doing so many great things today. And to think that this new rule would literally set us back decades. So that's kind of where I'm at. Facility preparedness, that's another big one. But, we are fortunate here in Bristol, back in 2016, we moved into this, state-of-the-art facility, which is very well maintained, much of that by your firefighters. And if we can't do it, we have the assistant chief position is responsible for maintaining that facility. We have the annual sprinkler inspections, the exhaust systems, the appropriate trained technicians are there each year performing these tests, and we have all the documentation to back that up.
So you're looking for you and Valerie to draft a letter, or Valerie to OSHA?
Yeah, I volunteered to draft it, and I'm still happy to do that. I'm just assuming Valerie would appreciate some support on that. I can't see her face right now, so I don't know if she's smiling or nodding. Okay. But yeah, and I guess the last thing I just wanted to touch upon is, whomever you all put in this position I'm in today, this position of fire chief, the duties and responsibilities this position has today are great. I work for you all 7 days a week. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, what day of the week, you are getting something from me because it's absolutely necessary. Because it's just that much to do, that much to document, always being there for 32 firefighters, who have various needs any given day. But the additional documentation requirements that will be placed upon our town, such as pre-incident planning, where we would need to prepare, evaluate, high risk, vulnerable type facilities, whether it's a school, an apartment building, assisted living, any place where there's a high risk should a fire occur, we need to perform a pre-incident plan of that facility and, once annually update that plan, maintain it, which is a lot of work. And speaking from experience from my fire officer 1 and 2 class a couple years ago, one of those 12 projects we had to do outside of the classroom was to do a fully developed pre-incident plan. I did that of the Bristol's American Legion over there on Airport Drive. And that, I don't know, 10 or 12 page document, I don't know how many hours it took me. It was just unbelievable, the level of detail that's required to comply with a standard that would become rule should this new OSHA rule pass. I know I spoke of the 23 national standards that are standards today that would become rule. Fortunately, only 11 of those would be applicable to your fire department today, meaning, they apply to the services we provide today, because half of those are services we don't provide. As an example, high angle rescue or swift water rescue, just as a couple examples of things that we don't do. So those standards, should they become rule, would not apply to us. So I guess in summary, we're in very good shape as far as training requirements. We're a level of today, it's the higher level training, and it's the capital expenses that would be placed upon, that burden that would be placed upon the community should this rule pass. That's my biggest concern, and I'm sure it is yours.
All right. So yeah, I would say any comments from the board first of all.
No, but thank you for putting that together, Brett.
Yeah, I know you're concerned.
Well, and that's not my presentation. That when it was sent, obviously I have my own notes, but that was something that the National Volunteer Fire Council prepared, so I can't take credit for that. But again, if you had a chance to look at it, I did give you that that was probably a 10,000 foot view, and I just gave you a 30,000 foot view. So,
okay. But I would like to say, I think the board through the administration should respond to make some comments to OSHA that you're affecting every.
Yeah, it needs to be specifics. It can't just be, it's too expensive for us.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we don't want to do it. So
Right.
That's what they're looking for. And I, the one thing that hasn't happened is insurance companies haven't weighed in yet. Not sure exactly why, because it's really going to affect insurance rates should we lose fire departments but one of the rumors is they're waiting to see, because the last time this happened back in the 80s, which was before my time in the fire service, it shook everybody up, and what actually came through was less than what was proposed. So
yeah, I do know one of my counterparts right here in Addison County, a fellow fire chief who happens to work for an insurance company, received an email from that person this morning who was going to connect with other insurance companies, those who specifically like VFIS, who provide insurance for emergency services organizations, just to inquire about what those potential impacts may be should this pass. So I'm curious to see what this person learns from that inquiry.
Right.
Just as a timeline thing, if the deadline for comments is July 22nd, the select board's next regular meeting is July 22nd. So
Okay.
that would not provide an opportunity for the select board at that meeting to bless a final letter and send it out.
Well, I think you.
So it'll have to be sent before then.
Yeah.
We are having a special.
Give me a
meeting on the
deadline. You got to give me a deadline.
July 15th, Monday, a week from today.
Valerie,
If you want a road
That
trip.
work?
It works for me, yeah.
All right,
'Cause,
July
the select
15th
board
it
is
is.
having their Capital Roads tour and road trip, or annual
They're
road trip.
taking us,
Yeah.
Gilligan's taking us on our 3-hour.
You got to put me under pressure. So July 15th it is.
Yeah.
Eric's taking us
That'll be
on
an
a 3-hour
opportunity.
cruise.
The skipper.
Yeah, and just one last comment. These capital expenses, we, the Bristol Fire Department, are extremely fortunate and extremely grateful to be supported by you all and this community, because, you know, annually today we receive a generous appropriation to be able to replace our emergency vehicles, you know, every 20 to 30 years currently. And, you know, if you've been reading the articles in the paper, following the news at all lately, you know, not everybody is as fortunate. And I'm very grateful for that. So thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ready. Consider approval of master service agreement with ATM Engineering PLC for engineering services of County Engineer Steve Palmer.
Hopefully folks had a chance to glance at the notes and the draft document that's posted online. This comes about because ever since Green Mountain Engineering closed their doors, Steve Palmer has stepped in as basically Bristol's town engineer. But most of the projects that he's been working on for the town have either been paid for under individual contracts, like for the fire department inspections, wastewater inspections, landfill inspections, had individual contracts for those, or the water line projects that have other contracts associated with those. But now we've entered into a new realm where Steve has been asked, perhaps more than once, to do something for the town that's outside of those frameworks. And so this master agreement would just be the baseline for being able to know what we're asking for, and so we're all operating from the same playing field. And then for the specific projects, and this relates to the next agenda item, he would propose a specific work plan for approval, and that would be kind of like a supplement to this master services agreement.
Does your master, in your notes, you talk about not renewing it each year, that it automatically renews? Is that language in this agreement?
It's not.
Okay.
Thank you for catching that. Because I think rather than having to visit this every year, as long as nothing changes, then I think it would be convenient, as presuming everybody agrees, that it just would automatically renew from year to year.
What did we do for Green Mountain Engineering? Was it renewed each year?
It's individual contracts.
Okay.
And I think the relationship had gone on for so long. There could have been a master agreement 20 years ago, long ago.
It's in the vault somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe. But anyway, I don't know that there was one, but
Okay.
in this day, I think it's worthwhile.
And I don't know what the law requires. I mean, are we supposed to bid for design services?
Bristol's procurement policy specifically exempts engineering services and architectural services from the bid process,
Okay.
if we choose.
We often do for individual
Yeah, I feel
projects.
like I've seen that.
It goes,
Yeah.
yes.
Especially grant funded projects, or
Oh, like-
projects for other funding sources.
But for ongoing projects, I think it's usually.
Better to have consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the procurement policy authorizes sole source.
Okay.
We did, by the way, put a clause in here that you have the right to terminate this at any time. So
It's already in there, I think.
Yeah.
7 days notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the-
So I mean, I think this is fine. I think making it easier each year, and obviously just have the ability to review or revise if needed, obviously hourly rates, or anything else. But it seems like that's in there. And so would you put in the language in terms of the automatically renews, or would we just?
If you agree.
What do you think?
I think so. If it says, I mean, there is a clause in there that we, under so many days, we can get out. if
Yeah.
we-
I mean, the other thing that's gonna happen is we're just gonna keep using them and not know that the contract's expired, so.
I know, and that'll come up.
Yeah.
Right. I think a
Oh, by
motion.
the way, you don't work for us anymore.
Right, I know. I think a motion to approve the master services agreement.
Do that as in language.
Yeah, having it automatically renew from year to year. I think that's fine.
Are you okay with that, Steve?
sure. Yeah,
I
I'll
threw
add
that
that.
in without consulting you.
Oh.
I mean, given our water lines project, Steve will be with us for a good number of years, hopefully,
Hopefully.
unless he gets sick of water pipes.
I was gonna say, or unless Valerie doesn't want to put up with me anymore.
It's called job security, Steve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay,
Oh, man, you need to text Kevin.
Oh, are you gonna do it?
Yeah, I'll text him.
Okay.
consider approval of a work order with VTM Engineering for the scope of work for the School Street Extension Waterline Replacement Project, such as design, construction specifications, cost estimates, bid processing, construction agreements, and construction oversight.
Are we waiting for Kevin?
I don't know that Kevin will be interested in this particular part of it.
Okay.
All
All right.
Casey, I guess, where are we with this?
So this is basically what a work order that goes along with that master services agreement would look like. And, you know, Valerie's goal in this, and I think mine too, really is to have a system where we can just have a couple of pages, you know, and all the framework and the minutiae is in the master agreement. And this is essentially, you know, a cost estimate and a description of the work, and obviously a signature, right, to approve the work. And we're trying to make it that simple. So this was about School Street. Valerie asked me to put together a proposal specific to School Street because you folks wanted to deal with School Street separately as a separate project. And obviously we need to make sure we meet the requirements of your purchasing policy because it's going to be above $5,000. So the goal would be to put together a separate set of design drawings and specs for that. Some of that's already, a lot of it's together today. But obviously we have to do, you know, detail pages and notes and other things like that. And then put together a bid package along with an agreement for you folks when you select a contractor, and I'll go out and I've got a whole list of local contractors for you guys from the last project or the last couple of projects we did. And I'll get in touch, and if you folks have other folks you'd like me to get in touch with too, over the next couple of weeks, I'll start touching base with everybody and we'll just pick a date that the bids are going to be due. And we'll go ahead and we'll see how many bids we can get for it.
So, it's July 8th, so would this project be designed, wrapped up and dug in and wrapped up by December 8th, 5 months?
So the goal, Joel, in the schedule in here is for us to put together the design and bid documents over the next 3 weeks. And then we would bid this during the month of August, with award sometime toward the 1st of September. I've got to time that obviously with a select board or water commission meeting where you guys can review the bids with me and accept the bid. But the bid documents in terms of, I've got a short form agreement that I'm going to work on for you guys. And it's really about 5 or 6 pages. It's not like the last one that we had that's 300 pages. It's pretty straightforward. It just references the drawings and specs, and all the details are going to be in there. And it says, you know, they agree to do the work based on the drawings and specs. Here's our insurance. Here's, you know, all the other major things that could go wrong, hopefully in a construction project that hopefully won't. And you know, they agree to do it for X amount of dollars. It's pretty straightforward. And so when you guys accept it, Joel, the goal will be, they're going to have that package that they're going to bid on, and all that language will be in there, right? Once you
I
say,
believe we have minimum of 4, maybe 5 connections to make.
I think there's 5.
Okay.
The only caveat to this, I think Kevin was going, which is important actually, I think Kevin was going to work on some easement language for Valerie, because he had suggested, I think this was a good suggestion, not going out and spending the money to locate every single property line. And he had some language and some ideas for some language that he wanted to write up an easement that was specific to the final location of the water line, so many feet around it, and all of the property owners would sign it. So my work is dependent on him, obviously, and my timeline getting that done. So that's the one thing that I don't really have control over.
And that, we'll be discussing that more in the next item, item 5.
Yep.
And we've texted the town attorney, and he's coming down to, if you got the text, to discuss that.
No, if he watches his phone.
Right. So, any discussion from the board?
Yeah, so the money on this, the cost estimate of 9,800, where's this coming from?
Well, at the moment, it would be coming from the Water District Capital Fund,
So the
ultimately, I mean, initially.
the whole of the water.
Well, that's the
And
next,
the people, I was gonna say,
That's
and
the
nobody
next
on
agenda
that
item.
street is gonna be,
that's the next agenda item. but this is the first step. And the proposed agreement is a not to exceed. So it could be less,
Well, no, I get that. I understand that.
which has been the trend, that Steve has been somewhat conservative in the estimates, and they have probably consistently come in less than the estimates.
Well, I'll make a motion, we hire Steve to do the, give work order for School Street Extension Water Line Replacement Project.
And do you put a caveat in there about where the money's coming from until we make that
That's the next
decision, or?
Well, I mean, it's gotta happen one way or another,
Not necessarily. I mean, we could vote it down.
and then more.
Yeah, I guess
I
we
mean,
can vote it down, but what,
right.
We've already voted to do the work.
We have,
Yeah.
We haven't voted to do the work. We
We
voted to look
voted-
into it.
We voted to replace the line.
And to direct Steve to
Steve
do
to-
this
yes.
design work.
yeah,
And that's what
like
kind
a-
of,
Your concern is that the cost.
I got a motion, but I haven't got a second.
Well, this is only the engineering portion.
I'll,
Right,
I'll
right.
second it.
Okay, now we'll discuss.
No, I
it.
I mean, this is only the engineering
Yeah.
portion. I mean, not the bigger number.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not a
Right.
line.
and do we have the funding? I mean, is this
current,
gonna
for
take
that amount of money, yes, we have it in the capital fund.
to do the project and the design?
I don't know. I don't know what the design, what the project.
We don't know what
will
the
come in.
cost was. I mean, we were there was estimates,
But that 9,800 will get us there.
It'll get us that number. And then we'll know whether we can afford to do it or not.
Are there other streets like this? Like, is this the only one that we're ever gonna have to deal with? Or are we gonna be buying people's water lines? Like, if you don't maintain it and it starts to leak, do we then?
This
come
is
in
gonna,
and
this
buy it?
will be our water line after this.
But are there
Go that
others?
route, right?
Yeah, are
I don't
there,
know
Others in the town?
You mean as in,
Sure.
we're doing
there
other
are.
streets?
Sure.
North Street was, but I think the town replaced that last time from the Bouvier property to Menards.
And so
Now,
now
what
we
about the
own
one-
it and
Now we
maintain
only
it.
The
maintain.
France
it.
Lane, France, that's got a water line on it that doesn't.
Up the Knopfler?
No. Francis Place.
Oh, Francis Place.
That's
right.
got a water line, we don't own it.
Right, but that's what she's asking, are we gonna?
Right.
Once you do this, then you're gonna do all of
Well,
them,
that's
right?
gonna kind of relate to the next agenda item as well.
I can't, now, I don't know if you've been in the other meetings that we've had about this water line, but this water line leak we're talking about is at least a 12-year-old leak. I don't know if you know that or not, but which really should have been dealt with quite a long time ago, but
By the owners
But
of the
again, it's not the
property.
town's line, right?
what's that?
It's not the town's line. Town doesn't own this line.
So
That's the
I-
whole point.
agree
I
with
know you feel it is, but Kevin will tell you it is not.
Nobody's ever said anything different. I mean, up until 2 meetings ago, this all of a sudden surfaced, but up until that, nobody's ever said this was a town line. Right? I mean, it did. We had them. They were scheduled to do this hookup back,
November
November.
last year.
yeah, well, November,
Oh.
we decided that, I think by May 15th or something, they
Right.
had to do it. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff kind of started to surface, but up until this point, nobody ever talked about that. And when I bought that property, I needed to talk to them to get this thing taken care of, because it's been a long time issue, and never once has anybody said that this was a private line. Yeah, up until 2 meetings ago.
But legally it is, right? Is that,
As far as we know.
But what do the deeds say? I mean, what
Right,
ownership is established somehow by deed?
right.
And we've all had deed searches done prior to us purchasing our houses. And
There isn't 5 owners of that whole line. I don't believe there's 5 owners of that line. You know, I don't know, I own the first 40 feet because it goes to my house, and after that, it's somebody else's 40 feet, it goes to the next one. And, I mean, the high school was let's say, Bobby, wasn't the first building there? But it had to be pretty close. Bristol High was all before our time.
well, I mean, we can go around and around,
Yeah.
and keep talking about this, but we've already agreed that we want to take it over. It's for the benefit
Yeah.
of the town's water
Exactly.
system. And so we just have to
because
figure
it's
out.
leaking? Is that why it's the,
You
I
can't
don't
hook up to it.
If we hook up
It's
his
like
line,
a
we could
snowball
create,
effect.
right, a domino effect of basically the
We're losing,
pipe
yeah,
deteriorating.
we're losing
and just-
water. We know we're losing water.
Right,
It's
But
a
we're costing the
galvanized
but
line.
we're
entire
losing
system.
water in throughout the system, right? So, I mean, that's why we're replacing all
Yes.
these lines. I guess my concern is just that if this is one instance and this is some weird situation that happened, that's one thing. If there are multiple situations like this, then what are we really talking? Once we set a precedent that this is what we do, what is the total liability here? I mean, are we gonna have to charge people like $300 a quarter for their water bill? Like, I just want to know the scope before we agree to the first instance. What, are there other situations
I
I
like
would say
this?
this is an unusual
Yeah.
precedence on this one. Because of what we've discovered, because of the number of houses that it serves, its condition, and the problems with leaking and the potential problems for making a new connection there because of its age. It matches all the other 1905 pipes that we have. But that's not to say that there aren't others that we are aware of, or perhaps we aren't aware of, that are private lines. We're doing our best in terms of figuring out what it is.
Here's a distinction that I can offer, that in this instance, if there is a serious leak that is a burden to the entire system. It's dropping water into the ground, it's increased chlorine, increased pump time, increased electricity for that, and it's a major leak. And as Ian noted, that to repair it could have a domino effect throughout that particular end of the system. And in this case, the proper approach for repair is to replace that entire line. And it's among the 1905. So there's a lot of reasons to be doing this right now. Compared that to other private lines under private roads or wherever, such as Francis Place. That's a most recent reference we can refer to. That was what,
84. Francis Place was
1984. So we have some information about its history. It's not leaking. It's not an urgent
yet.
situation.
Right.
And there's no urgency to this situation. There's no demand for repair. And it's not as old as this other stuff. So I think that's an important
And
distinction.
I think,
You could argue that we own it by way of our ordinance. Our ordinance says that we own to the curb stop. We own the curb stop. So we feel, or I'm assuming we feel we own all the curb stops up through there. And
Well, that
Well,
nixed the Francis Place thing.
well,
It's
yes and no. The one curb stop we got there is the valve out in the street to shut the
Right.
line off.
right, we could, if that hydrant blew or that
And then
line
they'd be
blew,
liable for everything.
the owner of that line would be liable, those three owners would be liable for that. If not, we can shut the water off at the curb.
Right.
But as Val said, there's a number of precedents for this particular one.
Unique.
Yes, unique precedent.
Yes. So,
So you have concern in terms of, so what have we found out in terms of actual ownership?
I haven't done the research, but I know that the school owned the building. When they sell the building, it didn't go to the town. It went to whoever bought the building, which meant everything underneath it that went with the town, which
Or
is
with the
include the
buyer.
road and all the water lines underneath it.
Under the fire.
Right. I mean, the town didn't buy it.
Right.
So,
We
can
are
I-
blending into the next agenda item. This particular agenda item was for the scope and the contract to do this
so,
work.
yeah,
And one of the questions I have is what's included in the scope? For example, if the water line replacement affects one of the private stone walls or the stone walls in someone's front yard or their garden space or the driveway, where's the line? Between what the project is going to pay for and what the property owner is going to be paying for.
If it's yours and you destroy those things, you do have to replace them, don't you? I mean, isn't that what we would normally do?
We normally take care of everything up to the curb stop. I mean, that's the way our ordinance reads.
And also repaving the road, so just want to be clear
Yeah.
that those things are included in the scope. That would be bid out and designed.
I think so, because that matches what we would do for other projects.
Okay, so we've got a motion second to have the work order with ETN engineering with all the specifications. What's your pleasure on that? I'm gonna call a question here, then we'll get into number 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask one
All those
question?
in favor?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wondered,
That's all.
is there, we're obviously replacing up to the curb stop. Jill can tell us if some of the service lines from the curb stop to the buildings are galvanized. Is there some thought from the water commission side as part of this understanding of the homeowners that if there are galvanized service lines, are they also going to replace, is the homeowner going to be responsible at that point for replacing that? Because if the system is leaking and you guys are going to, this is just me talking out loud, it would seem logical that there's some solution that tries to fix the entire problem, not just 70% of it. Just a thought.
Well, we know the end one's new. And we know that you're gonna put in new. So we're that, and we
leaves
know,
3.
I mean, we have other homeowners here.
and we
They could
know
perhaps
that,
speak to
and we
that.
know that the line going into
The
the
school.
school is new.
Okay.
So there's 3 of the
3
5.
out of the 5. Could we,
Yeah, the other 2 haven't responded to the service line inventory.
is that the one being the Catholic Church,
Can we ask them?
the rectory?
Catholic
No,
Church
that
is
that
not-
one we've gone in and seen. That's
Oh,
that's
rectory.
copper. And that's also that's before this little tiny line. That's on the bigger line.
The rectory? The
The rectory
churches.
is not the church is not the rectory. I don't think I have the rectory.
Okay, let's we're trying to keep this together here.
I just
So-
don't think I understand what's happening. So we don't know what the deeds say, but we're gonna vote to do scoping work before we look at the deeds. Is that the order?
We're going
The
to
amount of
scope
money
to
you
get
would
a price.
spend to look at the deeds, because you'd have to go back far enough
Mhm.
to find that. It depends on what we decide, whether we're taking over the road, whether we're taking over the lines, if we're going that route, then it's easier to just get quick claim deeds done or whatever.
Regardless of what we
whatever.
need done.
Think
Good
what we're-
Over the
question.
water line.
Right now, we're just only
We're just dealing with the scope of
up to
having.
$9,800 possibly to getting ready to bid. Now, those bids come in when we say, well, wait a minute, it's more than we want to pay right now. That's a different meeting, a different conversation,
Mhm.
I believe.
It
Am I
is,
correct,
it
Pat?
is, yeah.
In saying that?
Although, as I mentioned with the upcoming agenda item, how the framework in which how this will ultimately be paid for, including the engineering, including construction, we should understand that ahead of time. Because it shouldn't matter what the actual numbers turn out to be, because we should know what the framework is. It could be $10,000, it could be $50,000, we don't know, but that shouldn't change the
You're
the
hired.
decision. That
Right.
shouldn't change
$10,000, you wanna
the
do that,
decision.
Mike, for $10,000? Okay, let's vote on this. I won't read it all again, but Peter made a motion and Ian, you seconded it, right?
I did.
Consider approval of the work order with BTM for all the project costs and design for School Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 3-2.
3-2, yeah.
Sorry, I voted early, but. Okay. Okay. Number 5, School Street Extension Water Line Replacement Project. Discussion of the town versus property owners as responsible entities and process going forward. Okay. We do have the town attorney here, who can ask some questions.
Can you bring them up?
Yeah.
And Kevin, if you'd like to come up, please. So you back up. Just talked about School Street, so now we're gonna, and we're going to discuss on the ownership, I guess, or going forward, the ownership of it.
of the street and the lines.
I think, we don't want to own the street.
No.
We just want an easement for the lines. I don't want to own the street.
And I don't think we've discussed owning it. I think we've only ever talked about the water lines.
Yeah.
We want permission to dig in it, the ownership, or to own the lines underneath the.
Well, right away for the water.
Yeah, so there's storm sewer under there too.
That's coming from Church Street.
Yeah, but it's still,
Right, it comes down through there.
but we need an easement for that. We need an easement for both. So every property owner will give easements for the lines to be there, but also for us to get in and do the work necessary either by, construction or maintenance and repair. So,
So we have another issue besides just the water line, is what you're saying.
well, stormwater, no, the stormwater, it's the same deal. The stormwater, there's a stormwater line that's already in that underground. And that's, as far as we know, without Michelle going back and doing a bunch of research, we don't know that there's an easement for that stormwater line. I think the town in the past may have been just assuming that School Street was public and could put the lines in underneath without permission. We don't know that. So it would just make sense that when we're getting a quit claim, we're getting an easement for the water line, we get an easement for all the infrastructure that's buried under School Street.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever rights.
Let's not do a water easement.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't have.
The thing caves in.
Well, yeah, I think, I'm gonna assume that people own, joining property owners own to the middle of the School Street, believe, that's typical if it were a public highway, but it's not, so not sure exactly where people,
Boundary lines are.
where the boundary lines are in relation to the infrastructure that's buried. And I think we would just do it as a easement and quitclaim. The quitclaim would be relinquishing any rights they would have to the lines themselves, and the easement would be to give the town the right to, one, for the fixtures to be there, and two, to go in and maintain or install as necessary. And I think from what we know, when it was the high school, that wasn't the town, maybe it was the village, I don't know.
Yeah. Would have been the town, because town owns the park too.
Yeah, but
The village.
schools have been separate municipalities for a long time. And I think going back to the 1870s, but at least, so.
I thought I'd seen a map
I'm pulling it up now.
50 years ago, but the high school used to own to the curb that.
Right, but the high school was not the town. The high school, it was a school district
Or school.
of some sort, and that's a separate
It was a
municipality.
town school.
Oh, okay, so it's not.
It was public, but it was just
But it
like,
wasn't
just
owned
like
by the
Mount
town.
Aid. The town doesn't own Mount Aid.
No, the
Right.
town doesn't own Mount A, but. So we up until they formed the supervisory union, the tax dollars for Mountain Street School came out of our town budget. They were in our town taxes.
Yeah, so what,
And then, so I'm just thinking out loud here. I assumed, and I could be totally wrong, that when this was Bristol High School, that Bristol paid for it.
yeah, and I think it's likely, although not certain, that it was owned by a school district, whether it was the Bristol School District or whatever it was, but schools have been a separate entity for a long time, but not forever. We could figure it out with actually just chasing one deed back. My guess is.
You notice how he did that? That was, he pointed right towards. Couple of dollars.
Joel ducked out of the way. That's pointing at Joel and so he
I
got-
don't
My
believe,
spare time.
I don't believe he's blessing you. I think he's.
But, so if that's right, that it was owned by a school district, which is a separate municipality, when the school district sold the building to whoever bought it originally, then whatever rights they had, whatever rights to the infrastructure went along with it. It lost its public status at that point.
And it became private.
Yeah,
But the water line was put in, up by the town school district.
Probably,
I
yeah,
mean, there's 3 buildings there. One's
Yeah.
gone now.
yeah,
the
yeah,
front one.
right,
Then this middle one, and then they added the gym on, I understand, back in the 40s,
yeah, so,
the brick building.
you know, I think in those days, there would still have been a separate municipality, but don't know without looking. But if it's correct, then it went with the sale, and even if it was the town of Bristol or the village, probably would have been the village that sold it. Whatever rights went that were,
As a village, as in the village school, or not?
well,
No,
when it
is
wasn't even when
It
this.
was a Bristol
when-
Town School
before-
District.
Yeah, so, or even if there was at some point where the village itself owned it prior to school districts. And at the time of conveyance, the rights would have gone with it. With the lines, unless there was some reservation in the deed that said, you know, you're getting everything except for the lines, those are gonna remain public. I'd be really surprised if any document said that.
Anybody thought that far?
Yeah,
ahead.
So
It has to be-
here's the warranty deed for the school. Reserving to the grantor, its successors and assigns as any existing municipal water line together with the right to enter upon said lands to replace, repair, and maintain any such line and subject to the condition that the lands be returned to the condition that it was within a reasonable time.
That's a deed to who to who?
That's, this is Tom Wells' deed. I just happen to remember it because
Yeah.
I was talking to him about the bus shelters and they're trying to figure out the display box and who owned that. And so he sent me this and I just remembered that I had it. And so I just searched water and that's the first thing it brought up.
So can you just read that again? That was quick.
Sure, sorry. Reserving to the grantor, its successors and assigns is any existing municipal water line, together with the right to enter upon said lands to replace, repair, and maintain any such line, and subject to the condition that the lands be returned to the condition that it was within a reasonable time.
And that's from who to?
Yeah,
Tom?
from who to who?
Bristol Town.
We know.
Tom bought
So
it.
this is, let's have a look at the very
Because
beginning.
the
Tom
Wells
didn't buy-
EPJ
Tom didn't buy-
properties,
Yeah,
EPJ to Wells.
They bought it from the
And
high school.
EPJ got it from Twin Birches,
Twin Birches bought it from the high school.
and then Twin Birches got it from the Bristol Town School District in
Right.
1989.
All right, so that's a separate municipality. That doesn't, well, maybe
Former school
maybe
buildings,
when
nothing
the
about
Addison Northeast got formed, that everything that the various town school districts owned went to Addison
But
Northeast.
that was gone before that. The high school was sold before
Right,
Addison
but-
Northeast.
No.
Well, but it's
Because we
still,
went to grade school. I went 4th, 5th, and 6th over there. So did I. Before the high school, and the high school was still being built. It was built.
took him 9 years. So.
Stop the- No, but, you know,
That's true.
Bristol, we went to Bristol Elementary because we were crowded before they built the big addition.
But that deed that Ian just read, it reserved to the school district the rights to the line, so. Somewhere, it never, that's not the town of Bristol.
No,
So-
it may be EPJ, and this isn't quoted, so I don't know. Like,
I know,
this
but
part
it's-
is quoted.
But I'm guessing that the school district properties. Went into Addison Northeast Supervisory Union at some point,
Yeah.
and maybe there was a gap and they, because this. No, there always had to be a high school, so
sold
it
it.
would have been seamless.
They sold it to Twin Birch around 19, well, the addition.
It said
I think,
89.
was 80s.
I think it said 89.
But yeah, but the Bristol Elementary big addition was built, I believe, 83 or 84.
Right, so there is no town school district anymore.
Right.
But I think the town school district merged into Addison Northeast, most likely.
Maybe after 86. Because I was excavating at that time and I farmed until 86. Because I was doing houses across the road for Corkins when they were building the school.
Okay, so 86.
87.
Would it change anything if the line actually passed through to Church Street the way you, Joel, were envisioning it doing in the future? Would it change anything in this discussion if that line passes all the way through and goes connects to Church Street?
We don't.
Not
Yeah.
really, we own that.
The water
We
line
own that,
Right.
doesn't go through.
that strip that goes through there.
Stormwater does. Stormwater comes from down that alley all the way from Church Street.
We don't know for sure that the water does.
We're not 100% sure the water lines.
They
don't come down that street.
they didn't definitively,
No,
they said they don't feel it does, but they didn't definitively rule it out.
There's such a huge leak right below us. I don't understand why we have such tremendous pressure. And Jill mentioned something about volume.
Imagine if that leak was fixed, how much pressure you get. It'd probably blow out our pipes.
Blow all our gaskets.
So. I mean, I agree with Kevin, we don't want just a water line replacement easement. We want
Well, we need to have an easement to work in, work.
right in
there,
the
so
right of way
We need the
for
easement.
stormwater or.
yeah, well, we get an easement to, you know, I would say something like 10 feet on either side of the line where it's located, because we don't know exactly, I think we don't know exactly where it's located, maybe we do. But the easement, the work area would be, I don't know, 20 feet wide enough to do the work?
For the ordinance, we used up to 33 feet on
Well,
each
I know,
side.
because we were dealing with public road and stuff like that, and
The extension of water mains, water lines, distribution lines outside of the public right of way. So this easement area would serve as a de facto public right of way for the purpose of utility only. And we wanted to make sure there was enough room for equipment, staging and all that kind of stuff for construction and maintenance.
so we can, right, so we can make it wide for work.
Up
And,
to 33 feet.
yeah, if we've got that. I'm looking at
Because
it.
I don't know how wide that road is.
I know it's not.
Well, if that, what's the isolation distance for stormwater and water, Steve? You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Sorry, it's 5 feet.
5 feet,
Outside
so-
of- What's that?
So there's room enough to get the separation up through there.
Yeah, ironically, I'm texting on the side with Jill about doing some additional location work on that stormwater line, because there's 3 lines that run through there right now. And I'm not 100% sure. Normally it's a straight line, and you can see there's some wiggle in this line, which makes me think, you know, we've got the old sewer line in there, we've got the stormwater line in there, and we've got the water line in there. So I'm wondering if the locator got confused in here. So anyway, what my point is, we're gonna probably do a little additional work.
The sewer line.
The old,
Make sure we get the separation that we need. Yeah, we need 10 feet off the sewer line and 5 feet off the stormwater line.
well, the sewer is all new out.
Part of the,
You're
where
talking
the
about
original
this stuff
ice
here,
line
yeah.
was.
Correct. To the pump station.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the old sewer line that came out of the locker rooms and that in the gym.
Is it where Steve's mouse is right now? Is that what you're talking
Right
about?
there,
Or
yeah.
That's
Yep.
the water, that's the sewer line?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
But that's not functional anymore?
No.
no.
Okay,
Sewer used to
New
be, high school
system.
sewer used to be across the road behind town
so
hall.
we don't need to
Used to be
worry
on town
about.
property.
Town
So-
property, town property, here you go.
So if it's capped off, Steve, we don't need to worry about that old line for isolation distance purposes, do we?
I think that's sewer, and Peter can fill me in, but my understanding is that sewer manhole is still live, but they cut and capped the line down. The existing line south on School Street. See where it says 50-foot minimum setback in big dark letters?
Mhm.
Yep, somewhere in there, it got cut and capped going further south, because it used to go to the river, right? And I
Yep.
believe that line,
That
that's
fish.
the pump station,
The septic line used to go to the river?
right?
Oh, no.
Right. And that's what,
Okay.
so yeah, Jill and I were just talking about locating that, because we've got to make sure we're 10 feet off that sewer line. We located it with the locator, but sometimes they get confused. If you've got 2 or 3 lines in the same place, right, it's picking up that metal, and we may not, it may
Well,
not.
if it's not functional anymore, why do we have to worry about it?
We don't to the south, except I would like to know where it is for construction.
Oh, okay.
So when they run into it, I can say, okay, I know that line's abandoned. We're not tearing anything out of the ground that we shouldn't be.
Okay.
And then also up to the north end, there's where we need to make sure we've got separation, correct?
Okay.
We've got one house there, one in the back. The other,
The school, we got 5.
yeah, about 5. Do we know if the old school has 2 water services people?
No, just 1. I think we
One goes to the
confirmed
other,
that, it goes into the gym.
And then it goes towards the gym.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comes in the old section just past the bulkhead there into the.
Yeah. There
Into
used to be a power pole there, because we used to have to plow it. I plowed that for wells.
power pole's gone.
I don't know. There used to be a power pole still there.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
think it's
still
still
there?
there.
Yeah, pretty narrow.
We go up there all the time, you can help.
We used to plow that for Twin Birch when they bought it for years, they plowed that.
I see the starlings nesting.
So, okay, what's our pleasure here, people?
And so this would go then into the bond vote that we're going to.
No.
No.
This was not included in any of that. This is a separate project.
This is a separate, once we know the price, will we take it out of the capital improvements project money we have in the water budget?
This is where we're supposed to be talking about costs and who's associated with what costs and how we're gonna pay for it.
Right, so,
Another option too, just, there might be multiple funding sources, perhaps, but one of them could be the municipality and the water district are authorized by law to borrow up to 5 years without voter approval. So a 5-year loan
No.
is enough.
Sorry.
It is enough.
I don't
And
like-
that would be paid, by the district, by the ratepayers.
I do,
But that is an option.
Yeah.
Some, maybe a portion to fill a gap or whatever.
I would like to see that the minimum do both stormwater and water. And if we're gonna take the expense as the ratepayers of the water district, gonna do the expense of this water line, that right to the meter inside that building, it's gotta be copper. The owners of the buildings have gotta agree that if I have an old cast iron line or galvanized line, that I'll agree to go from the curb stop in with my new copper, and they pay for that. I don't wanna, like we did Pine Street, I've always pushed that we did all of great $780,000 worth of repairs, and we may still have some leakers over there because we got galvanized lines going in those
Well,
houses.
one thing that is clear is that all of the property owners will continue to be responsible for their service lines, no matter what else.
Correct, but if they say, you know what, it's leaking the 25 feet or the 50 feet or the 200 feet, and I don't, it's all on the ground and my meter doesn't show it, and I've got great pressure, I'm not gonna bother to replace that galvanized line, and I'd like to see that part of the
Yeah,
agreement.
you've got the leverage, if you wanna call it that, to demand all those kinds of things in order to take on this expense that otherwise you don't have to take on.
And I mean, I think some of them are already been replaced, they're copper anyway. So,
Yeah, but there again, I'm going 200 feet. And the directional board said, we're gonna have issues pulling copper 200 feet. It comes in 100-foot rolls.
Well, you're going to go plastic, and we've approved plastic and other.
We're gonna what?
You said you were gonna do plastic or.
Yeah, I like to do, everybody.
But it has to have a tracer wire so we know it
Oh,
leaks.
yeah, I understand.
And,
And
you know,
if you're okay with that, that's the only point I'm trying to make is.
Well, that's between the
You're just
engineer and the operator.
backpedaling. You are backpedaling now.
I thought you guys were talking about, going
I
to
do-
plastic lines.
Well, I'm not
No?
saying, maybe
But
I'm backpedaling.
Any
a little
main
bit.
water line that gets changed now is gonna be plastic.
Yeah.
They don't use any of the plastic anymore.
Well, that depends on what the town decides. The
Yeah.
town could say, no,
Right,
it's,
we
it's
could decide
copper.
no, but what I'm saying is if we're stepping up the district, the water district, then the homeowners, the property owners are gonna say, I'm getting my galvanized out of the lines.
So
That's
you,
what I'm saying.
Right,
so
right,
Joel, are
right.
you
You
saying
guys-
you don't think these property owners should have any,
But if you're okay, if you're saying it's okay to use plastic. that's
any
what I
skin in
want.
the game?
All the skin in the game from the curb stop to there, to meter.
No,
All
I'm
of-
talking about the rest of it.
I haven't really thought of that much, but at minimum, I wanna see at least from the curb stops replaced.
How do you enforce that though? Like, what if you
That's what our
get there with the
policy-
line and,
That's
And they don't, we don't
Yeah.
hook them up.
right,
We don't hook
okay,
'em up.
can we legally do that?
sure.
Our
There are
ordinance says, our
restrictions
ordinance
on
says.
water.
we're-
Ordinance says we recommend.
Well, it's gonna be, if there are legal documents like easements changing hands here, so that to make this project happen, that document is gonna say that your obligation is to install whatever we say, from the curb stop to the foundation, if that's what the town wants, we can put it in those, whatever conveyance,
Conditions. Yeah.
whatever conveyance we're creating. And you've got to, you want to decide if. Well, we have a get, does Steve have a guess for us what this is gonna cost?
I don't know.
Steve?
I thought he was,
No, sorry, I keep thinking I'm muted. No, I haven't done any takeoffs at all yet. That's,
But then you give us a rough estimate though, the
Well, we
last
know what
time.
Pine Street cost, right?
yeah, I don't even know how many feet exactly this is. I'm sorry,
I mean, I know we have talked about going all the way to Church Street at one point, and we were like, yeah, that's just way more than what we can, pull off.
Right.
So, but now I don't remember what the numbers were.
60 feet. Wait, go on. Can you wait to be recognized?
Yeah, come on, Dave. Did you, the fellow behind you, he's looking right. Did you want to speak? I didn't see your hand.
There's not at this moment.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Steve, we're gonna dig from where the crosswalks are, because we know there's a connection right there. And a 6 or an 8-inch main, whatever it is. And then we're gonna go, I've heard 60 feet, I've heard, how many feet? And he said, I know you don't, estimates, I don't like ballparks, because that's what people remember. I agree with you, Steve.
yeah,
You put the numbers to the paper, pen to the paper, and figure it out.
Well, I mean, I kind of need some kind of idea,
right.
you know? If it's 25,000, okay, maybe we can absorb that. If it's 100,000,
250,000.
I mean,
I would-
that's a totally different ballgame.
I would say in seeing the construction industry and seeing how busy contractors are, your ballpark for that is anywhere from 50 to 100,000, and that doesn't include your $10,000 engineering design nor any construction engineering services.
Right, that's perfect too.
Right, and I think it would depend too. I mean, we've had a bunch of different discussions and we've gone around and around about whether we were gonna size this for other purposes other than just water supply to these buildings, domestic water supply to these buildings. Which, you know, if you want to do this economically, that's the right way to do this. Basically, replace what's there in kind. We'd probably upsize it, but rather than putting in an 8-inch line, if you're not planning on having fire protection services there, which we already got on the corner of school and park, I would not suggest doing this in an 8-inch line. I mean, you're just, I don't understand what the rationale for that would be if the only goal of this discussion is for domestic water supply to these buildings, right? We could do this in 2-inch and it will be way more. They've got 1-inch today supplying all these buildings. We could do this in 2-inch and do this fairly economically, relatively speaking.
But if at some point we decide to go to Church Street all the way through and loop it, you don't want 2-inch, right?
That's a different discussion, exactly. And that's what I'm saying to you. I guess I need you folks to tell us what it is you're trying to accomplish with this. If our goal is just for domestic water to these buildings and not with a larger purpose here.
Is there a big advantage to us looping Church Street through there at some point? I mean, we're looped everywhere else, right? We're looped back from Church goes down to Maple and then back over to West.
Right.
So we're looped.
I can tell you from the hydraulic model that GME did, if we're successful in replacing all these lines, you're going to way more than meet your ISO requirements in terms of fire flow everywhere. Remember, we're upsizing most of these lines.
Yeah, and then the other side of that would be, that's a dead end line that can basically, when you have a loop system, it's continuously flowing in all directions, so it flushes itself out. When you have a dead end line, sediment builds up at the end of the line and has to get flushed out via some type of flushing hydrant. So it's more of a water quality and a water volume is why the lines get looped.
So are you saying
And
if we don't loop this, we need a flushing hydrant at the end?
You should put one, yes.
But it's never.
Well,
Whatever, you guys can do whatever you want.
I guess it depends if we're treating this as a service line or a main. And yeah, we could, Jill and I could look at some water velocities in there. If, for instance, if we open up 19, if we open up the hose bib on 19, for instance, right, can we get enough velocity out of a 2-inch line to flush that. We need to get it'd be nice if we could get 4 or 5 feet per second. I don't know if we can get that out of there, but we can run some calcs and see if that's necessary. If we can't, the very worst thing is a flushing hydrant. I think there's a big discussion here about affordability, right? And
Yes, yeah.
you need the Cadillac version when you can get by with the Pinto, honestly. And that's
Well,
a
you're
real
dating
discussion.
yourself.
Your first car must have been a Pinto.
All right.
Okay.
Is there a sprinkler system in the old high school? Currently?
And I don't know.
It can't be. It only has a 1-inch water line.
No, I
Right.
wouldn't think so.
And so this funding then would come out of the capital fund?
Correct.
And do we know how much money is in that?
$500,000.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what we figured out last week or
Yeah.
2
We were
weeks
told 2
ago.
weeks ago by our treasurer that with all the audits.
once we get the loan through and pay back the
General fund,
general fund, and
That
then the
money's
general
gotta
fund
go.
pays back the
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 water.
water.
Department.
And so that money then will be with them.
Yes. Because we are borrowing the full amount, correct?
Right,
For this project.
for the Pine Street.
On the
For the
Pine
Pine
Street.
Yeah, for
Yes.
the Pine Street, which
borrowed
means we
from
will be able to pay back the
Water Department.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, so somebody want to draft a motion that,
Well, I don't know if we've really figured out everything, like who's paying for what? I mean, if we go on this route, is the town paying for it all? Is there gonna be skin in the game by the 5 homeowners? I mean, we talked about the easement and I think we're all in agreement with that.
Well, you could require some contribution as part of the deal. If you did that, I'd treat everybody the same, make it simple. And there'd be some contribution because you're gonna take over this line that you don't own let's say you're gonna spend $100,000.
But we're also gonna get access to a stormwater line that we don't currently have access to.
that's.
Well, we have access to it, we just don't legally have access to it.
Well, it's been there long enough that we haven't.
Well, so is the water line. I mean,
Yeah, but it's not ours.
Yeah, we've never maintained that, we've maintained the.
It's not the town.
well, we have because it's never been touched since it was put in.
No, it's a school that it's.
That, you mean the
and it's stayed with
stormwater.
the
Yeah,
school.
no, the water line.
Oh, with water line.
Right, but I'm just saying, so conceptually, what you can do, whether you want to do it or not, is a different thing. Story, you make, because you're taking on something you don't have to take on, you can make people pay something, equal shares, and in order, as part of the deal, and then if they don't have the money for that share, then there's a promissory note with some time to pay it. And so you don't get one person who is cash strapped or doesn't want to pay, holding up the whole deal. But that can, it's easily done. It can be
Kind of like we did with Lost and Lane.
it could be a note and a mortgage, and so it'd be enforceable, but you give somebody time, if they needed time, to kick in their share, so you don't have just one person holding up the whole train. So it's doable, whether you want to do it or not in this case, at some level, is a policy choice.
I mean, you could also have them, if you didn't want to do the contribution, have them pay all the attorney fees. I mean, I don't know what that's gonna cost, but there's a lot of time in that.
It's the same level of administrative effort to do that. No matter, if that's the direction things go, it's the same administrative level of effort. Whether it's
If there was a contribution, we put it in the easement, and, you know, and then only if somebody couldn't come up with it, that would.
there
go
would still need to be a
further.
mechanism to get the funding, and if,
Mhm.
and if they don't, it's not
If they don't
available.
pay.
Yeah, so it's the same level of effort.
You could 50 to 100 is a pretty big swing. You could figure out, get a clear estimate and decide at the next meeting if you're
guess-
uncomfortable.
I was gonna ask that question,
Yeah.
if we had a number by,
We have Jill
in a month,
suggested, just like reminding us about Lost and Lane. for
They
that.
paid for everything.
pay that over time.
A 5-year loan.
5 feet long.
Mhm.
And that is a totally different circumstance. That was
Right.
because it was not put in the way it was supposed to be put in
Yeah.
when it was originally developed.
Yeah, there's a legal obligation.
So.
Good question. Did the folks who have the new service brought in from Pine Street, did they contribute to that project?
Made it today, going down through.
Yeah, for the people, homeowners along there, did they have to contribute to that?
No, it was put through their water,
Right.
water.
I think there's a presumption that, that this isn't town property and do you have documentation that you don't own the water line in that street?
We don't have documentation that we don't. We don't have documentation that we
Well,
do.
the documentation that the school district owned it,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was a school
which
district.
But
wasn't
there's been
town.
discussion that the, part of this is privately owned and well, landowners there have no information that we had any obligation or ownership of any of that. And so I think presuming that we have an obligation and should pay for this project based on nothing is,
No, there's documentation that the school owned it, and when the school sold it, it became privately owned.
but yeah.
Hold on.
But that road where the water line is was owned by the school. So if you've tapped into that line, either the school gave you permission or you did it without permission. I mean, or somebody did without permission.
Probably the water commissioners at the time just said,
Could
go
be.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
But if you look at the property maps, the, I don't know if the school owned the whole road or not, Michelle, but I do know that 19 School Street owns about 2/3.
Right,
of
over the
blacktop
other side,
over
yeah.
towards
Mhm.
the school
Yeah.
now. If the school owned its water line and sold its water line when that building was sold, what about the other 4 houses along there? What about 19 School Street? What about Dale's Place? What about Marsh's, Bryant Marsh's? And then what about the rectory?
It's in the deed chain.
Right.
So it'd be like a private road, if you bought your house, you would then jointly maintain the road. So I think the idea was you jointly maintain the water.
Or there was an easement
Right,
for
which is
the
not-
None of that
the use of that
showed
water.
up in any of our deed searches. I'm not saying it's not there.
And it might be
Right.
so old that it's, a lot of times, the most
Yeah.
recent conveyance is quoted and it says subject to all the deeds of record,
All the
easements of
previous.
record. Yeah, and whether things get,
The ball gets dropped.
no, it's still there, but whether it gets actually quoted in the most recent deed doesn't matter.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, you have to follow them all, really go all the way back, which is a ton of time. You have to go back and look at every single property. That's 5 searches. And that's beyond 40 years.
Yeah, no, you'd be going back probably to when the high school building was
Right.
built.
The first.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, if this was the school line, and then they sold the school property, which makes the line become private line,
Mhm.
would the school still own it? Why would it be a burden on the houses on the other side?
It would be owned by the school district now.
Right.
But
But
what
people
Ian
own-
was,
It's owned by Wells now, if the deed is correct.
no, but what Ian was reading is a deed in the Wells chain, which Wells owns the school
Right.
building, that says the school district, the grantor reserved, which would have been the school district,
Right.
reserved the rights to the line. So it retained the rights to the water line.
So the school district can replace it.
Well,
Right. No, I'm
you know,
just
so,
saying,
and.
Oh, it's their water line, we can tell them it's
bad,
bad.
the sale of the school,
They got lots of money.
that turned that from,
Just take it from you and I.
School owned line.
yeah, to a privately owned line, which is privately.
Not
owned
if
by
it was
the school.
reserved, not if the school district reserved it, according to what the Wells deed said. The line might have stayed with the school district.
Which makes no sense, but. Who
Right,
knows?
but-
I mean, who knows
Let's
why?
tell them we want it
Well,
replaced.
but I don't know, it's the Bristol Town School District. I
Right.
don't know if that's even around anymore. In terms of when I was looking at
Yeah.
this for the bus shelter, this deed has language about the little structure that's
Right,
there.
the
Where
bell
I
house.
was, that was the potential to put a bus shelter there. And the land 5 feet around that is owned by the school district, but there's no school district that is that school district anymore. That was dissolved and it didn't become. And I've talked to the school and they have no idea about that.
So there wasn't, so the elementary school, that would have been, well, maybe it's too new. My guess would be that when the school district, when we ended up with a union school district, that there was some document that
Yeah.
conveyed
Conveyed
all properties owned by each of the school districts that became part of the union school district,
Right.
transferred to the union school
Right.
district.
Well, that was only a number of years ago,
Right.
under Act 60 or whatever. No.
Right, but they should have, that
Right.
deed
Well,
would have been done.
And the
that
school-
goes back to Mount Aiden's time.
That could be.
No, I mean, Mount A was Mount A, 5 schools sent to it. Bristol Elementary was a town school district when Mount A. Until we joined as Union District, Mount A Union High School
Addison
District,
Northeast,
Addison Northeast.
right,
No, Addison Northeast
okay,
was a school of Mount A and the 5 sending schools.
Yeah.
Starksville owned their own school, Lincoln owned their own school,
okay.
Moncton owned their own, everybody owned their own elementary.
But they don't anymore.
They don't anymore.
Right, so that's my point, is that I think when that model of school organization changed, that all the schools that became part of the new entity would have conveyed everything they had to the
But-
new entity.
But that would have dissolved
Including the-
prior to that because they built the addition on Mountain Street and they sold that. Bristol School District sold that.
Yes.
So what-
The old
high school.
the old high school.
That never became a part of Addison Northeast.
Right,
yeah,
but the little bell house would have been part of it,
right, so.
be owned by the school.
No, I
district.
think it might have been an oversight, by the time, because the building was sold and long before the school district, the new school district entity was created. And so that original retention of the rights in the line by the school district might have,
Still apply.
might have just been forgotten about, and so one way or another, it'd probably get to this school district. I'm imagining, without looking at the state law, or education law, that when these districts are formed, there'll be something somewhere that says everything that those school districts had goes into the new entity. But whether it's a statute or whether there's some sort of omnibus document that says it, they probably took a lot of deeds from various towns. And so maybe there's some general sort of comprehensive deed that says whatever we owned in the village or in the town is now part of the district. It's, there's an answer somewhere, but it's not an answer that we necessarily need to chase down.
All right, so what if we just go ahead and we get my directional borer in there, we bore it out to the road. I'll hire an excavator to open that up and see what it is. We're all guessing at this point. I'm almost willing to bet dollars and dimes I can hook up to that box.
But if,
And I don't think that box is as old as we think it is.
but if it doesn't get into that, is it a 2-inch or a 1-inch line going up to the old school?
I thought Steve said it was a 1-inch.
If it brittle and,
Well, we'll know what it is once we dig it up.
but not tie into it, do we know? But if we tie into it, it keeps breaking and breaking.
No, I understand that part, but
Property,
we
we
should
should
be able-
from a couple
But we should be able to dig that up, look at it, and say, boy, we shouldn't touch that or look wrong.
Yeah,
I don't think that box is old as we think it is. I mean, that house was probably built in probably late 40s. I don't know why that
Your
box,
place-
yeah, I don't know why that box would have been there 60 years prior to. It makes no sense to me, but I know that was built after what, World War II, right? So they say, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll answer a lot of questions.
What's that,
The other-
Joe? Go ahead.
The other quick reminder is that their only way to shut that off without there being a valve on that corner is to shut off at the end of North and Park and at the end of West and School. So just as a precaution that Any big,
Yeah, you're shutting
touches-
off all those people.
any big touches, just be considerate about the plan.
All those businesses on Park Street get shut off.
Yep, just being considerate. That's the only reason any pausing has occurred. It's just because of touching the line and making sure there's permission to do so.
Steve, what do you feel that idea of at least digging down to the line? And see if they can tie into it.
And what happens if it all goes wrong?
Well, that's
Why I just
Right.
asked Steve, the engineer.
Yeah, no, sorry, I've been listening to a whole bunch of conversations. So just reiterate that for me, Joel, please.
If they dig it somewhere between, I can't see, right to go into the house way in the back. If we dig out there where that buffalo box is and dig to the line, clean it all up. And make that decision that day, then we're gonna try to tie into it.
You mean in terms of the
Get a
service?
directional bore out to the house.
You mean in terms of the service and where you stop?
Right,
Yeah, that's the only way to make the decision is in the field, right? You won't know the condition of that line until we get there. If they have to go 10 more feet or 20 more feet, you're not gonna know until you do it, right? And you get a sense of whether that line just disintegrates in your hand or it's pretty solid.
And if it disintegrates in your hand,
then we go all the way.
Then you have to keep going till you get something solid because there's no way to tie into it otherwise. Jill and I ran into this on Pine Street, right? And she's done plenty of others
right?
too.
So if that were to happen, the only way to shut it off is north and Park or west and School.
Both.
Right, so you can't just do that. You have to plan.
We could dig the corporation up where it comes off in that corner there.
You're talking about corner of Park and School?
Yeah.
Right there. Mhm.
You dig
And
that
put
up
in a shut off
and put in a shut off. I think that was Jill's recommendation back.
back several weeks ago,
Yeah.
month ago.
I would
That would
envision,
be-
we'll do some planning with all of these folks before we get here. And Jill and I did this on the last project, I'm sure in this one as well, like we'll make sure. We're gonna probably stack these utilities one right over the other because there's no room in here to work, right? We need to maintain separation. The likelihood of something happening is pretty high. We'll make sure everybody has some spare 5 gallons of water sitting there, for instance, they can flush toilets, some bottled water. I mean, things are likely going to happen. They usually do when you get into water work. So we'll try to plan for that. And honestly, I think you guys are, I'm being polite, but it's a waste of time to have those conversations right now. I think we're a lot better off letting us have those with your water operator and the contractor on the ground when this is being built. And we'll make sure
We
people.
got nothing to lose if we at least dig down to that corporation and try to replace that.
I think you should
Well, we
replace
have all sorts of things to lose.
The corporation, you should be able to shut off. But once if the pipe is no good, you'll know then if the pipe is any good there.
Right.
But it's an old galvanized pipe,
right.
and I'll guarantee you it's got holes in it.
Yeah, my goal, Peter, would be to put in the new line right up to the curb stop, and I know Joe will agree with me on this, and test everything, flush everything, and then go ahead and do the hookups to the services one at a time, right? And that's not to say things won't go wrong. You're dealing with 120-year-old infrastructure. It's probably some things are gonna happen, but we're pretty nimble. So I'm confident we'll find solutions for them when things happen.
You're saying replace it all the way from the corner of Park and School with a 2-inch and be done with it.
That's what I would do.
Not try to at least open up the buffalo box and see if they can hook onto it.
Nope.
We don't know
The
what's.
problem's not gonna go away. Even if Dale gets hooked onto it, we've still got an old galvanized line in the ground that's leaking. Let me just.
Hold on, yeah.
I could have sworn a couple meetings, the last time I was here at a meeting, Cyrus said that he couldn't get a good read on the water line. So he wasn't sure if it came down from Church Street. And I don't know if I'm imagining that, but what if it was coming down from Church Street? That'll change the whole picture. I think we need to know where the water line is before we continue with this discussion.
Actually,
Seems like there's a piece of information missing.
a read on the water line location was pretty darn strong, and then it was actually potholed and located and identified. So like it's there.
Right.
It's not down the alleyway though, right, Jill?
From Church Street.
Church Street through, right?
There's nothing there.
Well, I got a question here.
So let me just talk one more time. So I'm just trying to save some money here. So we know it needs to be replaced at some point. I know I got a directional board, get a water line out to the road. So if I'm sure I'd have Steve do it for me after him. He said he would do it. He knows a lot. I'm saying, we'll open it up, look at it. And if it looks like it's an issue, or we know that the box works, they turned it on and off several times. So if becomes an issue, turn the water off, put a temporary line over there, and then we go to plan B. This could buy some time for the town. It's gonna be at my expense.
The 2-inch going up to new could be put in with on the bigger project. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm just looking at a way to just kind of streamline this right now. Let's try it. Let me run
to the
plastic
buffalo
pipe,
box.
run plastic pipe with a tracer over to the house. So if nothing, we open it up and say, no, you don't want to touch that. I at least have a line there. I have to do that anyways.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the engineer that question, then I'm gonna move to
But
jail
I don't know
afterwards.
that there's a real answer to that.
What
till you look
do
at it.
you think of that idea, at least, Steve?
I honestly, if you're gonna do this, you do it right, replace it and put everything in new, right? New corporations, new curb stops. I'm not worried about his line disintegrating. I mean, we will work with him. If we get into a circumstance in the field, Jill and Cyrus are great as well. I mean, we will, between all of us, find a way to make sure everybody's got water, and we'll find a solution with the homeowners if there's an issue and we need to go beyond where we think we have to. Let us, I'm just suggesting to you in terms of this meeting and moving forward, I promise you, we will work something out in the field if there's an issue. And trust us to do that. That's all I'm
I
asking.
guess what I was reading from Dale was, he wants to hook up. He wants to hook up, and we'll do the 2-inch, but at a later date, if this buffalo box, he can hook up to it, get his water back on. We'll do the 2-inch when we do a bigger, part of a bigger project.
His water is on.
So Dale doesn't have water right now at 17?
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
No,
Okay.
I do. There's a leak, but I'm just trying to figure out a solution. I have to do it anyways. So once we dig down, like I said, I'll have Steve Heffernan do it. I mean, Steve's a great excavator. We'll know what we're looking at. And if we say, no, you can't do it, so we bury the hole back up. My line here has to be there anyways.
Do we know where the leak is between the buffalo box and the house? Could we go there first?
I think we're trying to put Band-Aids on this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm-
if we're gonna do this, we need to do it right, and I don't wanna cob job it.
No, I didn't.
I mean, and I don't wanna get, no offense, Dale, I don't wanna get into a position where you start doing something and then we're forced to do something right then and there and not have our plan in place.
I don't think you would be. I mean, if we would look at that, make a educated decision whether we can hook onto it. I have to bring the line to the road anyways.
And all I'm suggesting
No
is
matter what.
let us
Do
replace
what
everything
now.
up to the curb stop, and you can tie in at the curb stop, right? And Dale, if we need to go a little bit further because the line is disintegrated, we'll work with you in the field to sort that out.
Well, I'm just trying to find a solution here where it's really not gonna cost anything at this point. We know it's gotta be replaced at some point, but it would buy time. It's gonna be at my expense. I'm just trying to, and it may be putting and it probably is putting a Band-Aid on it, but you're gonna come back with $100,000 to do this, I mean, at least.
I don't think it'll be that much, honestly.
Yeah, I'm only guessing, but
Okay, we need to.
believe me, I'd
There's
rather.
a
have
great
it
discussion on this. We've had Kevin in to give his opinion on the extension of the water line project is
I
what
mean,
is,
before we do any of this, we have to get the easements to, anyway, too.
yes,
we
the
can't
first thing we have to have the easements is stormwater and water. That's the first one.
And from this property owner's point of view, can that be specific? The easement is for those 2 lines?
Yep. And
Thank you.
Those 2 lines of the
well,
water line
water
and
line and
the
stormwater.
stormwater.
it'd be conveying those lines. there,
Right.
And the easement would be for the town to have the ability to work on those
Right,
lines.
repair, replace, maintain.
Install, whatever.
So the only thing that's outstanding, I think we're seeing some agreement going on some parts, but the cost sharing, if there's going to be one, is the last thing that's not.
I think it's hard to do that without numbers.
Right. I agree with Michelle.
Okay.
I mean, if the property owners can't say, well, we're gonna do a cost share.
Yeah, if we give them a number tonight and the project comes in cheaper.
Yeah.
Not that,
What's less than that?
Not that we would
Yeah.
revise that, but.
no, but I
I think
mean.
we need that number.
Say we based it on $100,000 just for conversation's sake, and we decided we'd pay X amount and we wanted X from them, and then the project came in at 75.
Mhm.
You know, then
So it
we've
could be
got. then we
proportionate.
got-
You could do it,
It's
you could do a percentage, yeah.
What happened with Lawson's Lane? That was a cost sharing project?
They had to pay
They
it
had to
all
pay it all. We
because,
didn't.
because it was not
The
put in
developer didn't put it
correctly
in correctly.
when the lot was developed.
Kind of the same, but not.
Okay.
Some private, but.
Mhm.
So, we do need to wrap this up, and what are your thoughts, people?
I can get cranking on the easements and then the guts of it.
Right.
But then, you know, if we're gonna add something about cost sharing, that can be inserted.
So it sounds like this
Part of
aspect will be continued.
Yes.
And do we need to be clear with Steve on what we're putting in for a line now? I mean, if he's our engineer, he's recommending 2-inch,
And I think,
and I think this is a significant cost saving.
yeah, I do.
Or do you need to run numbers, Steve?
No, I agree with you, Peter. I can tell you right off the cuff, there's gonna be a drastic cost savings by going to 2.
No, but I mean, do you need to run numbers as far as 2-inch or something
Hydraulics.
bigger?
Water usage and hydraulics, you need to.
I think 2-inch, you've got 1-inch there today supplying all these buildings. 2-inch is gonna give us 4 times the supply that they have today. Probably more than that, because the 1-inch has probably got, you know, a ton of buildup inside of it. Yeah, off the cuff, easily 2-inch will handle this.
So where do we want to go with this, people? Bring this full circle here.
Well, I think we need the easements. Either way, we need the easements.
So I didn't, you need a motion for that? Valerie, to have Kevin start?
No.
I can start that, and then you can figure out if you get numbers more firm. Is Steve charged to give you some firmer numbers?
And we've already
did that on
contracted with him.
number
yeah.
4.
For the cost of the project?
Yeah.
Cost of the project.
Oh, I thought we didn't even know it was a 2-inch line.
We didn't, we were basing that on an 8, so
Yeah.
we just cut the cost significantly.
Yeah, I know, so the estimate from Jill was 50 to 100. If we're gonna keep open for the time being, the issue of whether or not the homeowners are gonna be asked to contribute something, then you're gonna wanna know more than we know right now about what this project's gonna cost for a
Yes.
2-inch line.
Right.
Yes,
Right. We need to know that cost.
Yeah, so we can.
get the easements rolling, we'll get the numbers.
And then at your next meeting, you can, if Steve has the numbers, the ballpark numbers, then or something firmer than ballpark, then you can decide whether or not you want to require some cost sharing. And that's not hard to put into the easements. But, Michelle and I can pull the deeds.
Boy,
together.
he sure pulls you in quick, doesn't he?
She's right across the hall from me. It's a never.
I saw a hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do I understand that one way or another, there is going to be a deed search?
No.
Well, it seems to me that the first thing to do is establish the principle of responsibility.
Well, somebody looking to pay for that?
Wait a second. If the property owner, if it's proposed that the property owners contribute to the overall project, my point of view is that that's fair game if we have some ownership of that water line, or historically did. But if the town has ownership of that water line, and you don't know it yet,
The town doesn't have ownership. If the school might, town does not.
somebody other than the homeowner.
You have a
Somebody other than the homeowners has ownership of it, then I think that it would be, I think it would be inappropriate for homeowners to pony up on an ownership that they don't have.
Well, why is it the town or the rest of the water payers on ownership of it?
What I think
the
I'm
town
hearing
doesn't
you
do it.
say is perhaps the owner of the old school building itself, the old school property is the sole owner. perhaps.
Well,
Well, it would be the
what
school.
I'm trying to say was, it seems to me that if property owners are asked to pony up, that we need to have a deed search to demonstrate that the property owners ought to pony up. Or not. But that's what I'm saying, if.
I mean,
If it-
that's a two-way street, you know, the town could say, okay, we don't own it, you prove us that we do.
So we're not gonna fix it.
So, right, so we won't fix it.
Yeah.
Versus the other side where you're saying, well, we don't own it, so you need to prove to us that we're responsible. I mean, it's,
Except you're pointing this in an adversarial point of view. And what I'm saying is, wouldn't we want to establish the facts as far as they exist in the deeds, so that we can work together with this, on this, in terms of the responsibility, based on the fact of what the deeds say.
But there's a cost associated with that.
right.
I
So
understand that.
we, from all of the research that the town has done, there is nothing that we found, including the one I read this evening, which is sort of new information, that says the town has ownership of that water line. So
Right.
essentially, from our point of view, that's not our water line. So I think,
But I mean, does that mean that it is our water line?
I don't know,
Because-
you're a deed search by a property owner, that's what you would have to do to establish that.
Right.
And then I guess you could come to the town and say, I've established that I don't own this and this school district did, or I can't find out who owns this, could you take this over? And then that would be that further conversation. Does the town take it over? And then is it compensation involved in that from the property owner to have the town take over that line and replace it? So that's one way you could look at it. That's not adversarial, it's sort of figuring out.
Right, it's not all that unusual also, to have the title search not answer a question. So it could be that this was done, I think the appropriate word, poorly, without attention to detail years ago. And people hooked up to that water line because
It was there.
Because it was there, and maybe somebody at the town said, yeah, go ahead, because they were walking down the street, or people just, things were loosey-goosey, and it wasn't that long ago. So it could be that those lines are hooked up without permission, and so property owners have required some rights to the line by adverse possession, but it's still not the town.
Well, according to this easement document that covers the width of the street, it granted an easement, a common easement and right of way pertinent to lands of Grattan of Haynes, of DOE.
Grattan, Haynes, Stowe, of the
And-
Catholic
and the
Diocese
school
and the Bristol
district.
School District.
Yeah,
So the church and the Bristol School District.
So there already is a right of way that's granted.
To all the
That's
people that
what
are
it
there,
is.
yeah.
a common easement.
The
Yeah.
common easement, yeah.
It doesn't specify what the easement entails.
Well,
Is
you'd
it
have to
just-
probably look at book 67, pages
Right.
143 and 146.
Yeah, could it be just vehicular access?
Yeah, we assumed
Or-
it was the extension of that, of the path.
Right.
It could be. But
It
then
might not say anything about it might not say anything about the water lines.
Right. I interpret that as a
Access.
common easement area for rights of access,
Yeah,
to get to your
egress.
driveways and whatnot. In and out.
Says easement and right of way.
Mhm.
So it's-
And it also looks like the property line, there's one property line on the west side, and it looks like it crosses here, and then there's another
Yeah,
property line is that way.
It zigzags.
Yeah, so it looks like the school district owned over here all the way down.
But it also says see book 67, 152 for boundary establishment. So there must have been some agreement back then of where the boundaries were.
So there may only be two easements here,
Right, yeah, the two reference points.
not those there, because they only own to the edge of the road, the way
Right.
that looks.
Yeah.
So it would be the wells and the last.
And
property.
Matlock.
Matlock's done.
Matlock and
is the
Bruce.
highest.
Yeah, Matlock and Bruce.
The hookups could have been without permission, or they could have been with oral permission from like the school principal or something.
Right.
Who the heck knows?
Yeah.
The odds that I would say the odds are low that there's anything in the land records that give that gives, mentions a right to hook up to that school line, because it was a school line. That may be there. Or
Well,
it
it
might be-
can't
it might
be.
be there for some, but not for all.
Can't be any worse than, Peter Jackman was saying that when his father was trustee, he built the house out of the water district. He told him to go ahead and hook up. He hooked up and never had permission.
Sure, no, I mean, that's, and that could have happened with oral permission from the school district.
Yeah.
From the principal.
Well, loss and light, all kinds of things happen without.
Yeah,
authorization.
so, the deed search might not answer all questions, that's the thing.
What was in the chat there that just came through?
I think that was that chill before? Oh,
No, no.
Oh, yes.
Well, I guess depends on who owns the lawn.
Anyways, okay.
Well, we've been here.
So we move forward with getting easements and getting a cost, and then we can figure out
Should be,
what we're gonna do with the cost.
let me ask the paralegal and the attorney here, would it behoove us to at least do research back at the old high school? Were they the first egg that was laid over in that corner of town,
I don't know what.
so to speak?
Our house is pretty old, was it put there
Then I think that would answer me, for
Maybe
me.
we could chase the school district, the schoolhouse property back to when it was created. It was, when do we think it was sold off, like 48?
89 was
89
when
probably.
the Bristol School District sold it to
Twin Birch Lane.
Twin Birches.
Okay, so,
Right.
That was challenged.
I mean, and there's lots of references to the land record books, so we could look at that. In this warranty deed from Wells.
well,
It's
It
there's,
doesn't have the recording. on the high
there, we can do a short look, but so. Here's the thing about Vermont, Vermont municipalities, especially towns like Bristol, the towns in the valleys, sometimes these deed issues go back to the creation of the town. And so there was glebe land in every town. One of the lots was for schools, one was for the minister of the Society for the Propagation of the gospel, believe it or not. So there are all these lands set aside. They've now been
Absorbed.
eliminated, but sometimes, and so when you're talking about schools, you might be in a deed search that goes back to the creation of the town of Bristol in order to figure out it's a glebe lot. So we can take I would say, let's take maybe a little look, Michelle, but if it looks like it's on a glebe lot, we're just gonna assume that it goes back to the beginning of the town of Bristol. When the town was laid out.
And meanwhile, I would suggest if anybody here happens to have or finds information that might help this conversation, bring it forward.
Right, so Bristol, like a lot of Vermont towns, was created before there was a United States, so before it was a Vermont Republic. So these are grants, these are Hampshire grants from the colonial era, before
I think we could find
part of
when,
England.
before the high school was built there, the old high school, the first one where the bell is. There was, I understand, way back
Oh.
generations, there was a school down in South Bristol, there was one north of
Yeah, there
town.
used to be
There'd
tons
be
of
one-room school
schools.
out.
There used to be tons of schools. They were consolidated in the late 1800s around the state.
Reggie Dearborn could tell us when that high school was built, the first
Oh,
one.
I thought the white building in front was the
It was.
original old high school.
That was the first.
Oh, that is the first one, okay.
No,
The one that's not there.
one is
It's not
grass
there
now.
anymore.
There was
Oh.
one there too that looks just like the one that's there now.
I see, okay, I didn't know
They
that.
put
It
three
ran
dishes.
the other way.
Yeah,
It ran north and south, where that one runs east and west.
Right.
I remember the building. I remember the
do.
building from going to
Remember
church,
when
but I don't.
they tore it down.
we could always, to close the loop, we could always get a quick claim from the district, school district. This district says whatever rights, give us whatever rights they had, which means all or none or some, whatever rights they had, they could quit claim to those lines, they could quit claim it to the town. And then we don't really care who, you know, it's easy, it's just easier than actually trying to figure out definitively who owns what happened, whether people had permission, whether it was done by adverse possession.
I believe, yeah, I agree, Kevin, because I believe our operator, we all agree that we want to make sure the quality of the water that goes through there, it's operated by our system and not by private people.
Right.
It says.
And it,
Absolutely.
but it still behooves us to get easements because
Yes.
we
Oh,
have,
yeah.
we have the stormwater there.
Correct.
Right.
Right, Peter, you're right.
Right.
I mean, even if we got a deed, even if we got quit claim their rights, we don't have access to the
When did that storm line go in? Do we have any sense?
day they dug the ditch.
Yeah, okay. What day did they dig the ditch?
I think it was a Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
What year did that?
Well, now you're pressing it.
Now you're pressing, so are we all about all set then, or we need a motion? Is that-
No, because in my notes, all I asked for as a recommendation was determine what additional information might be needed and next steps. So this wasn't expected necessarily
I do
to.
thank the neighbors for coming, I really do, I know this is dragged on, I apologize.
And we still don't know.
And we still don't. We're gonna find out.
Well, we'll take a look, but
I hope to. I'll say
actually,
hope.
yeah,
I hope to
actually,
find out.
answering the question could be a huge undertaking that doesn't actually answer
Get
the
us
question.
any, doesn't get us
Yeah,
any.
you know, it can become academic.
Do we, I mean, I would say take a quick beat, but don't waste money looking for it.
Well, we'll see. It'll mention a bleed lot pretty
A
quick.
quick look on my own personal time or a quick look on LSW time?
I think that.
I like your personal time.
I don't
you
know.
do.
I don't think it's your responsibility
your
as a board
responsibility.
member to look that up
No.
on your own.
Right.
I think if he directs you to look it up,
Then.
then it's on the clock.
Yeah, no,
And a few years ago, the town forfeited all rights to bleed lands.
right, by statute, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. But that's.
It was a motion of this.
Right, but it could, right. That they finally got wiped out because it used to be a real pain in the rear end.
The
to
SD
deal with,
farm was a
but-
bleed lot.
But, you
Home
know,
of the
part of it
Church
was
of
for,
England.
part of it was for schools.
Right.
And so it may go back, when's Bristol formed, 1763, something like that? It's April.
I was absent that
Yeah,
day.
yeah, it's a Friday.
That was before I was born.
Yeah, and so, you know, it could be, that could be the town glebe lot that goes back to when Bristol was laid out.
All right, we've got plenty more on the board, on the agenda, so we've beaten this up. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
you. Thanks.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve and Jill.
Thanks, Steve and Jill.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Steve.
you.
Okay,
Talking about anything else?
number 6, we could stay with it.
Um,
Consider development and adoption of a livestock running at large ordinance.
Oh,
This was brought to our attention months ago by Dennis Cisco, and it's back on here.
there are state statutes that.
They just passed a law, I believe, that they didn't
Well,
raise it.
there's been a running at large statute, it's probably really antiquated, these things go back to the 1800s a lot of times, but it's a statute and it's not, allows for fines, or maybe it creates a misdemeanor or something like that, you know, so you can have, it's something we can control.
We'll let Valerie speak while you're looking that up,
We have all
because
that.
Valerie has done some research on
Yeah.
other towns. And
Yeah.
I'll let Valerie speak. on that.
And I've looked at the ordinances that New Haven, Callis, and the other one have put
Waterford.
together.
Are they doing it based on public nuisance?
Yes, public nuisance, and
Then they don't need to look.
they're very similar in structure and have provisions for fines, different levels of fines, depending on the number of offenses. But also impoundment. Each of them have provisions for impounding.
We better look at it.
We're gonna
Yeah.
put it in as that.
That's.
Yeah,
So the
that's
town
that,
can do it.
Yeah, I don't think I wanna do that.
This was,
What's that, impoundment?
Impound,
this is the original one, which was made in 1981. If you had a horse loose, it was a $10 fine.
Yeah, now what is it, $100?
$100.
$100
I think
now,
up to 800 on the,
up to 800?
depending, well, the three ordinances
500,
all have the same
500.
fine structure.
Yeah, that's the cap to go through the judicial.
Correct, yeah.
Not to ruin a good time, but as you know, we had a bed and breakfast in South Stocksboro, and we went to sell it. One of the lawyers for the buyer found out it was originally a King's grant and there were liens on it from England. And I mean, it had 2 title searches done and nobody ever found it. And, but then there was something at the State House that sort of covered it, but there was still a lien on it from England. So.
Yeah, it was part of the glebe.
I guess I have a question, Dennis. You brought this to our attention, I guess,
Yes.
January, maybe?
March.
March or
Yes.
March, okay, sorry.
And
March.
you had told me that Vermont League of Cities and Towns had a bill, which is the one,
No, it's been passed, it's all right.
right, and then I
Gone
called
on.
Jenny Brasser from the Secretary of States, and she said, this group has authority to make these.
I wonder, has the running at large decreased? Has your problem decreased?
It has, yeah. I mean, we haven't had, she's, instead of 5 horses, which she should never have on that property, she's got 3 now.
Yes,
We can,
that's,
it's just,
we could
just
discuss
about
that.
this situation.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
isn't
this
this
is
situation.
Townwide.
Because
This is
an
townwide.
ordinance would be a townwide thing, and so that's, I think, what, the
Yeah, we have
scope
to
that
look
we
at
need
it,
to be
right.
looking at it, right?
But it's interesting, because this bill, the one that Vermont cities and towns did, was given to one of the senators to do it, and he goes, he lives in Essex, right? I mean, I don't think he has many horses running around. He goes, I see no need for this bill, you know, and that was it. And that's how come it got.
So,
But
what do you want to spend some more time in looking into this, the board? I'm asking the board.
Your Valerie on Dennis, right?
Yeah.
Was the bill, New Haven's the same as that one?
They're very similar. The
Okay.
3 different ones that I looked at were very, very similar.
Talking to Bruce Mason, I talked to him, and he ended up having to round up horses a few times. And,
At this resident or other residents?
no, this resident, that
Okay.
one. But the problem was, he said, if you do something regarding this, he would like an ordinance for dogs and that, because there is no ordinance.
Well, there is for dogs, but not for other things.
Well, chickens and that, there's a list of,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, cattle, sheep, goats, equine, deer, American bison, swine, poultry, pheasants. Something partridge, something quail,
I think we're,
ferrets,
take the cover off, we're opening up a can of worms.
and water buffalo.
but basically New Haven has one.
Okay,
Right,
all right,
So-
we've got all this, and we're gonna, thank you, Dennis, for bringing that in, and, we've got that one. And
So the question for tonight is whether the select board wants to proceed with creating or developing one and then going through the process of adopting one. But as I mentioned in my notes, 2 questions come to mind is what's the real scope of the issue that this is trying to address? And do we have the capacity to enforce it?
And how do you enforce it?
then how do you enforce it? And do
If
we,
you read the bill, it's passing it off to.
Well,
Vermont.
it's not so
Right.
much the bill, not so much the legal authority to enforce it, but the actual physical human and spatial capacity to enforce it, because each of those ordinances all refer to impoundment. And that's, that could be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, can you
And just
imagine? All the
Ian's
hills-
got a big backyard, he can go fence around it.
I don't think they say in.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Your
they
kids
do.
would be so excited if you came
I mean, I
home
just-
horse.
You think of,
Like a zoo.
okay, hold on.
the hills, all their cows getting out. Okay, what are we gonna do? You know, it's like, it happens once in a while, it happens.
That's you.
Well, the chickens run
the
around,
Humane,
run freely
the
anyway.
Humane Association is the one that doesn't want empowerment because they can't find anybody to
Right, they
take
don't,
care of the
Right.
horses.
nowhere to take care of them.
Right.
Oh, this is just all a short form, so.
Yeah.
There's a longer.
Does it say anything? I'm not sure I wanna
This is just a
spend a
short.
lot of time or
Yeah.
But also,
taxpayers'
overall,
money.
just a
But
short
also
form
like
summary, doesn't
horses,
tell you what the
I grew up with
process.
horses and like a lot of them are smart and they'll test the lines, you know, and try to find ways to snap the lines. And so even though you're out there all the time fixing them, there are times that they get out, even if you're like, if you try really, really hard. And so for this ordinance, do we then have to determine whether the owner did everything possible? Like, are we going to say like how many times you check the lines, or, I mean, how do you prevent? We don't want to punish people for things that they
Dennis,
can't
could you have
help, you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
trying their best not to let this happen and it happens, and to then punish them on top of it
But here it
seems.
says the bill also would authorize the law enforcement officer or the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets to
Inspect the fences.
to enforce the requirements to enclose livestock and prevent the running.
But I'm assuming there's a fence already there, right? The horses are fenced in?
Which one are we talking about? The ones that keep getting out?
Right, right. I mean, I wasn't here for this earlier case.
I think we discussed that, Peter,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
There's pallets.
There is some form of offense. Is it proper? That is not for us to determine what is proper.
Okay,
She's online up there.
Yeah, yeah.
She doesn't want to be.
She doesn't know.
Okay.
She will if she races. I get a chat. We'll take it.
okay.
So.
So sufficiently maintained fence.
I mean, there's a lot to discuss with this. I
Hard,
mean,
right?
we don't have the time
Maybe we
tonight.
should
Yeah, we
take
don't
a
really-
look.
You know,
Yeah, we-
there's a lot of things to have to think about in enforcement and who's gonna do the enforcement. I mean, we don't have the
Right.
capacity to have our police department do that. That's not their, I mean,
I
it's
mean,
outside the village. If it's outside the village, they're not.
No, you do. I call Bruce and he comes over.
I know he comes over.
comes
Yeah.
over
Is
and
he
he laughs.
supposed to be?
rides him home.
And again, we all help him get him back in the, you know.
But I believe some of the statute, what I'm hearing is, he could make a call to Department of Agriculture. So you got.
And they won't do anything.
And they, exactly, the horses would be
It's like-
back feeding that night before they even
Right.
pick up the phone, so. to speak.
Right, because there's all sorts of exemptions for small farms, that are hobby farms or small owners. It's not, I forget how many livestock and or cattle and horses it is, but that you can have before you're subject to control of the Department of Agriculture. It's 5 or 6, something like, so for the rule, they're pretty detailed rules, and there's a lot of exemptions for people who aren't really farmers.
If mine get out here in town, you're gonna own it.
Right. But
And
would the, whatever they're called, would the pallets count as palisades?
No, it's a joke.
I know, but I'm just
Hold on.
saying, if you have to enforce this law, it says composed of posts and rails, posts
Right.
and palings, posts and planks or palisades, post and wire, rails alone, or post and electrified wire.
Quarter palisades.
Which I have.
Yeah, what a
six.
policy, I'm gonna ask.
Right, I mean, isn't that just a barrier? Isn't that just a wooden barrier?
So, what it looks to me like this
Sure.
I don't. know.
bill is doing is just updating the existing, though old, prohibition against livestock and similar animals running at large. It's got nothing to do with town regulation. The town already has the authority to regulate public nuisances. The select board determines what a public nuisance is and then can say how to control it. So this is happening independently.
So in other words, that what I'm reading in that bill, which I had not made the time to read directly, that it's authorizing law enforcement and the agriculture agency to enforce that, but it doesn't require the town to adopt an ordinance to
Right.
do this. It's
Right,
already,
it's amending this
Right.
existing
so
statute.
an ordinance
That's
isn't required in order for that to be enforceable.
what-
by
It's
the
what it's what it
law
says.
enforcement
I'm reading, the bill would amend the prohibition on owners of livestock allowing livestock to run at large. This is the existing
Right.
statute, which has probably been in place since the 1800s, and so it's more detailed. And if this has been passed, then it's been passed. But
No, this has not been passed. That's the problem, that
And
it
this is-
wasn't,
Okay, well, then the issue is whether or not you want to adopt an ordinance, a public nuisance related ordinance that lays down a bunch of rules of the road for livestock or whatever other animals.
Possums and skunks.
Yep.
I don't think those are livestock.
Oh,
But, you know, so it's, I mean, you can simply have a fining mechanism.
which is what that is.
Well, this is,
This is a fine.
but it does, you just told me this isn't law.
No, it's not.
Right.
Well, this one is, yeah, but.
Right, so you can have a fining mechanism. You can. You've got a lot of flexibility about how much actual control you put in an ordinance about, this is what you must do. Fencing and things like that, versus if this happens, the
What
constable issues a ticket.
is New Haven's? Is it specifically that?
No, no. And the three I looked at are very similar, but they do have the nuances. They're different. But they include a structure for fines and impoundment. And
So it looks like you can regulate
this
what the,
isn't law.
right, this one was just introduced
Yeah.
in Enosburg. But it, I mean, it looks like one way forward would be to regulate the fencing itself. The other would be to regulate if the animal gets out.
Well, in
Right.
order to keep, you could say the running at large is a nuisance, and so you have to have fencing to prevent that.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's, I don't know if New Haven's goes that far, but you probably could. If not, it's just really an enforcement mechanism through the issuing a municipal ticket through the judicial.
I'm
enforcement by the
reluctant
judicial bureau.
to put Bruce on the spot, but since he's tuned in, if he is listening, I'd be interested in his perspective on how widespread the issue is and make enforcing a new ordinance.
So
Sure. That's a good question.
we haven't had any calls related to horses in quite a while. They do come in from time to time. I believe part of the discussion to have some kind of ordinance would be more than a $10 fine if the horse is running at large, because if it's only $10, are people going to make an effort to keep them in? My concern is I just don't want to see somebody get injured or a horse killed because it runs out into the roadway. And that has happened in Bristol. So, and if we're going to look at this, we should be looking at other livestock. We do get calls from time to time about chickens, believe it or not. So I don't, you know, it's at some point, it's not just about dogs, and we've got to address some of these other things. And one, I don't have the capability of taking and securing a horse somewhere. The ones that do get out, we usually know most of the owners, so we can try to get a hold of the owners or a neighbor, and we try to contain them until somebody can get there with the proper vehicle to bring them back, or somebody walks them back and we follow behind them to get them back there safely so nobody gets injured. So I don't know how you want to address it, how far you want to go with it, but if you're going to be looking into livestock, we should think about not just horses, but more.
From what you described, Bruce, what you described does not really require an ordinance to do what you do. you do what you do anyway, with or without an ordinance.
Correct, but if there's no consequences for people for their animals being loose, then they know that if they call us for safety, we're going to go out there and try to resolve the issue. So there should be some mechanism where if it's a continued occurrence, you know, I'm not sure where we go from here. We've been fortunate that we haven't been called recently, but there have been times over the last couple of years where we have responded more than once and to more than one location, including one evening where we were able to get a farmer to come out and catch a cow for us.
So when these horses get out or cattle, Bruce, is it? They broke the fence, or is it like the wind blew a limb down and took the fence down, or is it the owner is just not securing and just leaving the gate open or something, just not caring?
I
guess
think
a lot of
there's-
times it's a mistake, an accident that they get out.
Yeah, most of the time it's a single incident. There's no issue. But there has been one location, where it's been more than once, and it doesn't seem that they've made much of an effort to secure things better.
So Valerie's got this, Bruce, up on the screen here, some town, right?
This is New Haven.
New Haven's first offense, waiver fee, and blah, blah. So you got a request over by me, the horse is out, and so can you even issue that ticket, or does that have to come from an agency of?
No, that comes, you'd have to have an ordinance to
In
do
order
that.
to issue that.
So New Haven doesn't have a police department, so who issues that ordinance in New Haven to fit that?
Probably the constable.
Constable, or
Constable.
or maybe they contract with the sheriffs, I don't know.
It would be whoever they define in their, there should be a
Ordinance.
definition as far as the enforcement.
Enforcement officer, any law enforcement
Yeah,
officer,
could be
animal
broad.
control officer, constable, or other person designated as an
Right.
enforcement officer. Could be the select board chair.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll like that until you're the chair.
And in fact, it goes on to say, nothing herein shall prohibit the select board itself from serving as an enforcement officer in appropriate
Right.
circumstances.
Yeah, the issuing municipal official definition is always written broadly that
Okay.
way. I don't know what New Haven does. Do they,
No,
does the
this is
state police show up for, well, I mean, just enforcing,
This, again, just
Hold
so
on,
you
Dennis,
Hold
you
on.
wait to be recognized. Can you sit down, please? Would you mind?
Okay, I just,
We're in a meeting here.
so I just was wondering if, you know, someone calls, you can have all the ordinance you want, but if you can't act on it, and we got, you know, Bruce gets one and say, okay, I can't find the owner of this horse. Yeah, one did get hit down in 116, they knew, or two. We have no place to transport it, or how to transport it, or impound it. So you can have all the ordinance all you want, but if we can't enforce anything, why bother to have it, the ordinance?
well.
Or how do you
you
hit
can-
the fine
you
to
can
$100?
enforce with the tickets, you know, or the
Yeah.
municipal tickets.
Okay, Dennis, you had.
Okay, well, two things. One, before Bruce was here, we used to call state police, and they would be the ones who would go after her and call her. They had her on speed dial. They would call her and tell her to get her horses and that. And again, I think I mentioned it to Valerie that I did talk to a lawyer, and my concern is, my horses are all fenced in. But horses are similar to dogs. If a dog comes over your yard and he gets your dog excited, he will take off and that. Now, you have to understand that if that happens, if her horses come over and have mine excited and they go through a fence, and my horses get hit by your car, I have to pay for your car. Okay, it's my liability, even though she did it. And again,
They're the horse owner, they'll just say that the horse owner.
the horse, even though it wasn't my fault, it was her horses that excited my horses. And the lawyer said, well, just keep sending a note to the select board to put an ordinance in, and that way, if that should ever happen, the select board's liable because they have
No.
not put any.
No, no, absolutely not true.
I'm not sure we're
No,
liable,
absolutely
but
not
we could
true.
pass an ordinance in 60 days and have it in effect. But if it doesn't accomplish anything, just said, well, we made him happy up on Carlson
Well,
Road.
that's, you know, that's what. we're
And,
looking for.
but if we can't have consequences to, then what is it good on paper?
Well,
Except
that's
it
what-
makes
that's what.
attorney
I'm sure
fees
That's what New
go
Haven,
up on our bills.
that's what New Haven is doing, I guess.
But I'd like to know from Haven, I may ask a few people this
You know Cindy Hill?
Yeah.
Just call Cindy.
and say, what if, have you had any outcomes? Have you, any, you know, or what do you do? Oh, we just passed it to pass it, but we can't have him.
I think it's not getting passed till August or something, so. There's a sheet, or if I have it, I'll say.
Oh, really?
If New Haven's is relatively new, Cindy Hill, as a town attorney, would know the background on it. As you know, as you can tell, a lot of times these things happen because of one bad actor.
I know the first constable, I may
You
call
know,
him and
and-
ask him.
Yeah, so I don't know what led to New Haven adopting an ordinance, but there's a story there. most likely.
I'm gonna do a little digging myself. So, but it is getting late, and what do you guys you want more information, more? For what? Bruce makes some great points that we have an enforcement, but how do,
So if the select board does want to consider developing and adopting an ordinance, one question I would have is, who would do it? If I do it, it means something else won't happen. We're already pretty busy with a lot of other things. So I can't guarantee when it would get done. And if it's urgent, then something else won't get done. Or it can be hired out and have an attorney put it together and propose something for the town.
We can work off of an existing ordinance.
Yeah,
and tweak
the
as needed.
three are good models.
It's not, that's
Cut
not
and paste.
particularly hard.
Right.
The harder
Right.
question is scope.
Yeah.
You don't want to create
Exactly.
something like, and we can impound if we don't have a mechanism to do that. So
Right.
you might, if you want to do something, but we have problems that Bruce mentioned with impoundment and things like that, you might do public nuisance ordinance light and just stay with the ticketing authority and hope that if somebody gets smacked with it, they'll change their behavior. You don't always have to have a comprehensive solution, especially a small town that doesn't have the means to
Right.
do it.
I liked that part in the New Haven bill, which was or ordinance, which was just focused on paying a fee, right? So that you don't have to inspect the fence like some of these others, so that it would basically be if your animal gets out, you are charged a fine. But I would also like to see that the first offense is just a warning, right? Like,
Well, there's always discretion on
Right.
whether it's Bruce or whoever the issuing municipal official about whether they issue the ticket or not.
Right.
If the
Because
forest got out because a limb came down
Right.
in a thunderstorm, well, that's different.
right, because what we're looking to do are have people who are not maintaining their fences and having this situation happen over and over again, face penalties such that it would be harder to fix
No,
the
You're
fence,
you're trying
right?
to, you're trying to change the behavior
Right.
of bad actors.
Right.
Hitting people in the pocketbook can do that, doesn't always do it.
I think that was part of the reason they passed the law this year, it went from $10 to $100.
Well, they haven't, it's only, it
It didn't pass,
no, it
I don't
didn't.
know, it's on the wall.
it's on the wall, stayed on the wall.
That fee structure was the same in all three of the ordinances I looked at.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so the way the municipal ordinance statute works is it gets enforced through tickets to the judicial bureau. It doesn't take a lawyer, doesn't take, but it's a ticket. And you have to have a first offense, second offense, third offense, up to $800. Above $800, the judicial bureau doesn't have jurisdiction anymore and it becomes a superior court, well, district court matter. So the way these are always structured is first, second, third, fourth offense, and then a waiver penalty, whereas it's build that in so that you're encouraging people to just pay the waiver penalty and not fight the ticket. That has to be built into the structure. It's usually half, it doesn't have to be half. But you don't have to go to 4 fences either. If you have a lot of flexibility there. You can say, it can be a second offense goes to $800. You can, and then after that, it doesn't get enforced through the judicial bureau with just a ticket anymore. But if the town issues a ticket and somebody contests it, somebody's gotta go to court. It's judicial
Officer's
bureau,
time.
it doesn't take a lawyer, but it's Valerie or Bruce or whoever a constable or one of the selectmen, whoever issued the ticket. Well, it doesn't have to be issuing person, but it'd be helpful because presumably they have the evidence, they know the evidence, but somebody's gotta do it. Somebody's gotta go to court which is why I think it's probably better to not give people 4 offenses, because it takes time for somebody, you don't, you want to be going to court for $200,
Right.
I'm
happy to, if you send me the New Haven one, to rewrite it and give you all a draft to look at.
And here's Callis.
Yeah, if you send them both to me, I'll do a content analysis and just compare the words to see where they differ.
Yeah, you can strip out the impound, you can strip out the impoundment, if we're not, if we don't have a way to.
No.
We have a dog warden, right, but we can
If
impound
Ian's
dogs.
not putting up his
But-
house,
But
then
we can't do livestock and then leave it alone unless we're thinking of creating a way to handle it.
Oh, Peter would love to take it in his place.
I can't keep mine in. The horses
Okay.
are the deer run through the fence and the
Yeah.
horses get out.
Thank you.
Real quickly, I'm leaving, but I would be happy with just the fine thing. The fencing is a headache, and not taking the animal, just the fine would be.
Hopefully that would work.
Would be fine, a fine would be fine.
And the fence viewers don't have to look at the fence.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That's not their job.
That's right. Consider a request to purchase a new police department vehicle. Chief Bruce, you're up.
Okay, so one thing on the list of the vehicles I sent, where it says 2024 Ford Explorer, that should be a 2024 Dodge Durango. I typed in the wrong vehicle make for that, but the cost is the same. A 2024 Ford Explorer is around $46,800. So anyhow, we're due to replace the 2018 Ford Explorer. As you can see, once it took some convincing, but once we went to 3 vehicles, the value of the vehicles as they are due to be taken out of service become more valuable. And or you might be able to use it in another department or for another use. But for law enforcement use, we tend to be a little rougher on the vehicles. So we want to, have adequate vehicles to use. So with the 2023 Dodge Durango, they had some left over. There's not very many dealers with stock of any kind of vehicles. I was able to find some 2024 Ford Explorers, but as I said, those are like $46,800. So after looking out of all the ones that we looked at, the best value is a 2023 Dodge Durango. We would just have to determine if we want to use the 2018 for our community resource specialist position. And if we do that, we have to determine what kind of value that the police department would receive for that vehicle.
And use ARPA funds to kind
Yes.
of reimburse
Yes,
that trade-in value.
yes.
I can mosey, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
You don't want to buy a cruiser? Sure, we gotta see what the prices are first.
There you go.
Was the possibility of a hybrid vehicle looked at, Bruce?
Yes, they're more money, and right now, the dealers that I contacted, there are none in stock. At some point, I would like to get a hybrid vehicle. One of the agencies that is close by us bought one last year for the first time, or maybe it was the year before. They ran into some issues with putting the equipment into it, and because of all the electronics we use, So I kind of want to wait to see how they worked out all the kinks with that before I jump into a hybrid. Let them go through all the growing pains, so to speak.
Bruce, is this 23, does that fit in with our plan, whether we had a resource officer or not? Or-
Yes, this is the time
still
we're
fitting.
due to replace it. Yes.
Okay, all right, I do like it's being downgraded, so to speak, with staying in the, I like that idea, because I was, as you know, I was a little opposed to when we talked about, when you presented the position and we voted on it, put it in the budget, was you were thinking about a Subaru or something, and about the cost of that for a
Right.
new car. And I do like you're still using it, but downgrading it.
Yes.
I do like that.
Yeah, I had the energy committee, I was on email and they were sort of asking for support of a hybrid vehicle. And in the town report, it does talk about that in the capital plan, hybrid is in there. So they would support that. But it sounds like, do you know, in terms of availability, if there isn't one available now, what kind of time frame that might be?
I think they said most of the dealerships that we talked to said the next time that they would be building vehicles, you would have to we wouldn't be able to order till March, at least the Ford dealerships.
Okay.
And the Fords are the only ones that I could find that had a hybrid vehicle for police use.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's the Interceptor and the Responder, which is like the SUV and the sedan version.
Yeah, I don't want the sedan version. It would have to be an SUV.
Okay.
I think I missed this in the beginning of the conversation, but what was the problem with the 2018?
There's no
Nothing
problem with
shifting
it. We
that.
just recycle them, or I should say, we replace them after so many years, then it's due to be
Right.
replaced.
Is that like, that's like
It's
a.
That's in the
schedule.
capital, no,
Schedule.
that's in the capital plan schedule, so
So
that they have a
what
higher
always ended
value.
up happening, we were putting more money into repairs than what we
Year
would have been
7
putting
and
into payments. So we got the rotation from 8 years down to 6 years, and we replaced the cruiser. When it's 6 years old, we replace it.
We did a couple of years in a row. We kept a cruiser year 7 or closer to 8. And we ended up putting a $3,800, $4,000 transmission in it and getting rid of it in 4 months or so.
For less money. than what
For
we
this, yeah.
repaired it for.
Okay.
But we don't know if there isn't that kind of problem with this car. It's just on a schedule.
It's on the
Correct.
schedule.
Okay. And there weren't any Vermont dealers that had any vehicles that we could use?
In stock, no.
Do you see a problem with, you take some dealers and they'll say, no, you didn't buy it here. Do you see a problem with that Dodge? Taking it to the dealerships down here in Middlebury or other
We
places?
haven't had a problem with the Ford that we got. When we need warranty work, it's been taken care of.
Okay,
I mean, I guess with the stock issues, is this something that you need immediately, or can you wait if the vehicle that you're driving now the 2018 doesn't have issues? If we wanted to support a Vermont dealer, is there an amount of time you could wait in order for us to do that?
It still functions. So we can wait if you choose to wait. The cost of these things keep going up and my budget is always tight. So I'm looking to save as much money as I can for the taxpayers.
I mean, you're already looking at $2,000 if you don't go with the holdover.
Right.
2 extra grand, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, is this the same place we bought the last one?
It's not the same location, but they have a Ford
Same dealership.
dealership and they have a Dodge dealership. So it's the
Okay.
same. Yes.
No, okay.
And then we could sell the 2018?
No,
Sell
we're
it
gonna
or
keep it for
our
the community resource specialist.
So with that,
Our
It's-
embedded.
I don't know why we would use ARPA funds to compensate the department if the department already owns their.
Because we said we'd buy the vehicle for the CRS, the ARPA funds could be used, so what he's saying, rather than buy a new vehicle, that we would reimburse them for the
Yeah, but
value.
they
of
already
this.
own the vehicle.
They own the vehicle, the resource officer is a town
Town.
officer.
Town.
Hmm.
And you
employee.
see,
We did that
that
specifically
purposely.
so that
and
Right.
if we sold this, the one we're selling, or this one we're downgrading, we'll say it downgrading, is, if we sold it for $5,000, that I believe should be paid out of the ARPA fund because it's agreed to. than buying a new car. I'm opposed to buying a new car for the resource person.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to having them have a car, but.
Recycle.
But recycled,
I guess I would,
downgraded.
I guess. In order for that to work, I would like to see that position filled before. The ARPA funds are used for that vehicle. That position has been, we've agreed to adopt that position, but that was a number of months ago, and there's been no movement on that.
So we've had people interested, they made phone calls, they've stopped in. I have sent out at least 6 applications. With some other agencies offering similar positions that pay more, it's taking a little bit longer to find the right person to come work here in Bristol.
Yeah, no,
It's not that people aren't interested, it's just they're. So anyway.
Okay,
So
Okay.
with Ian's idea, you have the funds to be able to purchase that vehicle and not get reimbursed until we hire this.
Well, according to Bruce's note, there's about a little over $38,000 in the capital fund balance, or the capital vehicle fund balance. But as you saw, this is the price. So I think the idea is that the ARPA funds would help bridge the gap between the what we have available in our reserve fund and the purchase price.
So can we bridge the gap? I'm
I guess so,
a
because-
compromise here,
Yeah.
bridge the gap until the
No,
person's hired. and
My
then give
concern
them
is
the money.
that we are buying a vehicle from our own police department for the town, and it will just sit potentially for another 6 months or another year, hopefully not, I'm not saying that, but I'm just wondering how that looks. I know it's not, directly taxpayer money, but I don't like that idea.
Well, it is taxpayer money, because you and
No, I know.
the three of us
The
we pay a police tax.
Right, well, yes, but I mean, for the ARPA funds, I mean, I know it's
That's still
big
town, that's
picture,
still taxpayer
all of our
funds too.
money, but I mean, all of our
The ARPA
taxes, but I guess that's my only thing, like, we would buy this from the department, and then it would just sit there, so,
Well,
So
it's
he's
like
saying the value was 17 to 18 grand.
no, I know.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so,
So let's sell it.
well,
Yeah, but then you have to buy
Well,
another.
we
one,
can,
so especially
I
if
can
it's gonna
call
be
the
more.
dealer and ask them what they'll give for trade-in value. I mean, I didn't get a trade-in value because I was trying to look forward to, with the community resource position, saving the startup cost on that. But
yeah.
we
especially,
don't
I mean,
have to keep it for that. We can trade it in.
But yeah, can we get a comparable vehicle? Maybe it's another month and we get someone who's in that position and we need to get a vehicle. Are we gonna be able to get something for less than?
For less than what?
17 or
Yeah.
18.
Yes. As long as you can get 2021s at Keystone for about that price.
Right. And
But
yeah,
That's an estimated open market value. If the
Right.
trade-in value is some cruisers, $6,000-7,000.
That's what was in the capital plan.
Right, and then I think that's all our purchase. Unless we sell it outright and we put it up to bid, and Bruce doesn't get what we want for it, we keep it for the resource officer.
So for the resource officer, I don't know about this position. So it's normal that you give them a car versus just pay their mileage.
This is a new position
Okay.
that that's
And
been
you're
created.
gonna be asking them to go and deal with.
Dog complaints maybe and.
Well,
Yes, they may be picking up dogs.
Right.
Or they may be transporting somebody,
Mental health
mental
issues.
health patients to a facility.
So we need to
Our
provide
thought was, or Bruce's thought was, and we agreed with him that they shouldn't be using their personal vehicle for that sort of.
We could pay more in mileage in a month than you could have the car.
Right. But so if we're not able to hire someone, it sits at the police station, is that where it would be?
Or it's a
stored?
backup vehicle or,
It will be, once it's a resource officer, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, I believe the lights and stuff will come off it. It'll be more of a, yeah, say look like a police vehicle as much.
Yeah,
look like
I
a
mean, the spotlight will stay on it because we're not taking the spotlight off it, but the emergency lights would come out of it. Some
They
of
say
the
we'll sell
equipment
it.
in there would be taken out of that and put into the new vehicle. I would leave probably there's a partition in the back, so it separates the back seat from the cargo area. I would leave that in there. There would be some things left in, but the emergency stuff would be repurposed to the new vehicle. Whatever stuff that we could repurpose. I mean, I can only drill so many holes in those metal radio holders, and I'm gonna run out of space.
You're gonna run out of steel to drill?
Yes.
So,
I have no problem calling them to get a trade-in value. I'm happy to trade it in if you don't want to, if you want to go that route.
How hot are your applicants for the position? Do you feel you're getting close?
We are getting more inquires. But I can't even guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it could be
somebody sat at this.
It could be 3 months.
So somebody sat at the station with me and we talked for over an hour and a half about this position, the process. And I thought for certain that person would fill out the application, and they ended up finding a better employment offer.
well, number 7, the request to buy a new police cruiser doesn't say anything about the ARPA funds, so.
Well,
To
doesn't
buy-
it?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Doesn't the
in
TA report?
Their TA report, but we're making a motion in a second, if we do get it, to request to purchase a new police department vehicle. I mean, I'm not reading more into that.
And you're recommending the 2023 Durango?
Yes, sir.
So
I'm
I'll make. a
looking at the
motion
best
that-
value.
I'll make a motion that we buy the 2023 Durango.
He's got 2 up there, the 6-cylinder and
The
the
six-cylinder.
Okay, 6-cylinder.
39, 687.
Okay. Biggest motion said that, 6-cylinder. Okay,
I'll second.
there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I think what we, go ahead, Ian.
No, you can go yours. I have a question about the older vehicle. So you
Well,
can-
that's what I was gonna go. Do we wanna make the decision now what we're gonna do with that, or do we just wanna let him lock this one in and do we wanna get a trade-in price?
I think so. What's the mileage on that, Bruce?
It's right around
20.
68,000.
Okay.
I guess, I guess it wouldn't hurt to get a trade-in price on it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that we're gonna trade it.
Right,
But in the meantime, the ARPA funds had
That's
been
not-
authorized to
Right.
purchase a vehicle for the other positions, so if.
Did we have a, like, not to exceed?
There was I can find it, but I don't have it. There was a vehicle line item.
I mean, what I like about repurposing it, downgrading, repurposing it is, we
Well,
know the vehicle,
Yeah, that's what.
we know it, and then in 2 years, when we replace the 2020, isn't it a 20 pickup, or is it the Dodge, the other Dodge Durango?
It's the pickup is next.
As this car, we're not gonna say we gotta keep it 6 years. This one we're gonna repurpose, we're keeping it for 2 years if we get approval to buy one in 2 years to replace the pickup. We keep recycling, so we'll sell that Explorer that's a 2018 in 2 years if we vote to buy a new pickup to replace the 2020. Do I make myself clear there?
know
Well, in
what you're
this
saying.
instance, the vehicle, the 2018, it would be suitable for their community resource specialist because of the nature of that work.
Right,
But I don't know if a pickup truck.
well, I know, I didn't mean that, but I meant,
Yeah.
we can still always, we know the vehicles we're buying.
Mhm.
If we bought it brand new, and Bruce does the maintenance, they do a good job at it, so we know it. Instead of pig in a poke and buy something used.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it hasn't had any problems, we let the pickup go. If it has.
Right,
The
exactly.
pickup's a 4-door as well, so
Mhm.
it's not like you're losing space.
so there's a motion and a second, Any more discussion?
I guess we would,
Gene?
I think a trade-in price would be nice, just so we have that information. And then I think I'd like to look at just what amount would come from ARPA funds to support the town purchasing that. Would we purchase it for the trade-in amount? And that would still hopefully be enough to supplement the capital fund budget to get the new vehicle? Or do we do it? I think I'd want more information about what it's actually worth, right?
Right.
I don't want the town to overpay for it, and it would be a situation where if we probably wouldn't sell a third party, or the police department wouldn't sell a third party, they would trade it in. And so it's exactly.
We've sold them.
We
We've
have?
sold
Yeah.
them before.
Okay. Yeah, so I just want to have. a better
I would say,
idea.
yeah, the trade-in value would be fair to both.
Okay.
Because if you went to a dealership, you would be paying closer to what the market value is at that point. Where the
Yeah.
trade-in going from one department to the next within the town, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and that cost will hopefully get you to where you want to be and more.
Oh, I'm
for-
sure. I'm sure. it
For
will.
your vehicle. Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, it is a specialist vehicle, and I think the fact that community resource position is not a typical town position. I think having a more specialized vehicle is probably in order. So we would definitely be paying that when this position is filled. If this has gone by, we would have to be looking at a vehicle that potentially had some of the things that this vehicle already has. So
Right.
I do think it's worth keeping, but yeah. Okay, yeah, if you're able to get a trade-in price, that would be great.
Okay.
And it could be before it gets on the road with all the equipment, put it in, the lights and everything, it could be 5-6 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, right, Bruce?
For the
Oh,
new-
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it takes.
could be as late as September.
Yeah.
So we do most of the work ourselves, or we get a lot of help from the DPW garage for moving equipment from one vehicle to the next. It does not happen overnight.
No.
And they help us out when they get a chance. We work on it when we can. We do all of that to keep the cost as low as possible.
So hoping that maybe and by September, maybe we'll have somebody to fill the position.
I hope so.
It'll work out right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's a motion and a second, hearing no more discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stay, okay. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you,
Thank
Britt.
you.
Consider the Green Mountain Stage Race request for use of town costs for the annual bicycle event on Saturday, September 1st.
On Sunday.
Sunday, excuse me. I got my glasses on, I forgot.
And
my-
second,
There's a motion and a second, any
So Eric had a
discussion?
couple things.
did
on
Eric,
this, right?
does he know about that culvert?
I saw Eric's email, thing about, there's a culvert down on Jewett Road that we make.
Does Gary know that's happening?
I think
I sent him an email, I replied to all and said that
Hmm.
maybe still gravel, when the race goes through, we might have them all done, but there's still gonna be,
Narrow
gravel.
plank.
Yeah, it'd be a narrow, probably 8-foot wide trench, 2 of them. Where the
They should be able to maneuver that.
That's it, other than that, I just wanted to let them know that that's gonna be there. Or possibly could be. It might not be. might not
They
get to it.
unsweep it.
What?
Okay. And Valerie put in it, and I didn't hear the motion on it, but with the insurance and all that.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed? Staying, okay.
Who seconded?
I did.
Michelle. Consider approval of minor adjustment to the use value assessment forest conservation plan for the town of Bristol Seth Hill Waterworks in Lincoln. First, before we talk about that one, I wanna do, Don's not on, but Donna, I did see her just as we left the horse thing. And Don Davis commented in the chats, I saw it pop up, that he said, if you find people, then they won't have any money to purchase a fence. That's what his comment was. So it's right there.
Yeah.
If I would make money away from repairing their
I can
fence.
always add something in there that if they can put the money towards the fence.
So,
If they were gonna fix the
I
fence, they would have done it
know.
before they got it
Okay,
done.
I've read that number 9, so what do you want to do? Just give me briefly, Dave Brenner, our former forester, looked at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And feels that we are over assessed.
Oh, this isn't,
This is
isn't
for the
same thing.
conservation plan.
This, the conservation plan required some minor adjustments to the pages.
Well, this says Bristol's Seth Hill Waterworks
Right.
in Lincoln.
Right,
But
but,
you had told me a week or so ago, or last meeting,
Conservation plan.
right,
No, he
okay.
did
Same
say
location, different.
Oh, okay.
different,
I'm sorry.
different
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah,
Different topic.
easy to make that mistake.
Yeah, I thought it was the,
Yes.
Yeah,
the
no,
tax
the new
appraisal.
tax
No.
appraisal, no.
From
This is
Lincoln.
about the
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
conservation.
sorry. All right,
We'll forgive you this one.
all right, all right.
Do you have a highlight of what the changes for the updates were?
yes, hang on.
Pages 8, 28, 32, and appendix E2.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a hefty document.
So we didn't need a second on 9 or nothing, we're just gonna move on.
No, we're still
Maintenance.
there.
Okay,
So this is on page 8. So just, he,
Like thinning in areas of 4, 5, or
He's gonna do
6.
a some
Okay.
kind of cutting, but it's
Yes,
not
I
worth
use
the
my,
effort.
You'd
Right.
have to see the picture, you'd have to see the maps, but yeah.
so, in the original document, David had proposed an individual tree selection cut, and it turned out not to be worth the effort. So these pages 8, 28, 32, and the appendix were amended to remove that or adjust that.
Sounds good.
so we're not gonna do any adjustment, I'm not gonna do any work up there,
Uh,
or just on those.
No single tree.
Would you cut each
Say I
tree?
can't go in there and cut them all.
Well, that's what, you
Can
cut
we
each
develop
tree,
for housing up there?
you
You
cut
can
each,
live up there.
you cut each tree singly, don't you? One at a time?
It'll be
Not
peaceful.
always.
okay.
I get them going. I take as many as I can at once.
Well, remember that Wednesday night. I started marking.
Can't read sideways.
Yeah, at 4, 5, 6, sugar bush management or AG store damage repair. Whatever.
Should he,
So moved.
Second.
as a motion and second, should we have him get with the guy who rents our
He did.
sugar bush? Okay, he did, okay. All right, I got a motion, any more comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, okay. Review of the approval of February 12th, June 11th, June 10th, June 17th, June 24th, 24 meeting minutes. And
Is
I
it-
know only 3 is, June 3rd is ready.
Right, and as I mentioned by email this afternoon, it was brought to my attention that we actually we haven't even received the 17th and the 24th yet.
All right.
So, but
Is
she's
there a
working,
motion?
she's working.
You Probably read them, Michelle, the June 3rd.
I think so. Well, thanks, send you those?
No,
I don't
haven't yet.
remember. I was gonna say, I don't know if I've looked at June 3rd.
Can wait.
Okay, we'll move on. Authorize accounts payable warrant, any liquor licenses? What was the amount?
There's no law.
No liquor license.
86, 724, 61. No, 139.
$139,092.43. Okay. So moved. Select board roundtable. Why don't we start with Drew Peter?
I received a complaint last week about the one thing that we tried to deal with last year. The canopy coming down in the village. Trucks going through and cleaning out limbs. I know we went through and trimmed a lot
I
last
had
year.
Brett go through and trim up the canopy last year.
Yeah, I know, but they're going through like, when I came back into town
I see
tonight,
North Street.
North Street, there were leaves all over the place, that where somebody went down through with something and was hooking them. So I don't
wonder if
know.
Sean went up through there with Stephen's big excavator on the back. Would that hit him?
Might.
I meet with Brett tomorrow anyways on the tree grant. So I can ask him again to,
I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I know that, now that we don't use a tailgate spreader to sand our roads, we don't trim the trees with a dump body.
well, that's it. And then you gotta remember too, that we've gotten a lot of rain. And usually with the trees, with a lot of rain, the branches droop.
Yeah.
And it could be just because we're getting all the rain that they're drooping more than usual until they dry out, and of course, then they go back
Yeah.
up, so.
I just, we wanna keep it on our radar. If you've got them working in an area and there's stuff that's low, I would say we might wanna take care of it while he's there.
Okay.
That's not my decision to make, but It just seems like you go down all these streets now and the canopy is just, and it's beautiful to drive through. You know, especially after the trucks have gone through and trimmed it off nice and square, but it does create a problem for, you know, one of these delivery trucks come through and you get a limb like that hanging down and it's gonna do some damage.
Well, last year they had one go through with them portable night lights that they use for construction. And down on, East Street, it hit a couple limbs through there and broke 2 of the lights.
Yeah, okay. Anything else, Peter?
Hey, in reference to the trees, on some of the narrow streets where the trees are growing into the roadway a little bit, if 2 cars are passing each other, people are hitting them with their mirrors. So it's not just the canopy height, it's the width of the road too.
Well, some of the, yeah, like, I mean, I know on Church Street, Mary has some,
Yeah, and
lilacs there that are getting out far into the
Well, you
road.
got there,
And
and
it's
you
hard
got,
to
well,
see.
you also got down on North Street, I know North Street's wide, but down on North Street towards Walgreens. If you're doing the northbound lane headed out of town, there's a tree there that's
Leaning.
and the branches are, you know, they're not far, they're only about yay far into the road, it's wide enough where they can go around with no problem, but
Yeah.
it's into the roadway.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, they're really nice when they encase the road like that, but we also gotta keep the road where we can travel.
Yeah, and I've heard complaints and I've heard it from sidewalks too. On
Oh,
sidewalks,
Big time on sidewalks.
big time on sidewalks, we need to trim. Trust me. Okay, anything else?
I don't, if it comes to me,
All right, I'll
I'll
be
do
back.
like you do and.
Come back, I got one. Michelle,
I think I'm good.
Ian?
I had a meeting with the town clerk, and the assistant clerk, and the rec director and treasurer last week, looking at the credit card payments and what the town wants to do to receive them. We currently only do it online. We're looking to do it in person. So I've been researching that. I chatted with all of them just to get a better handle on what they like. I presented a system that Brandon uses called Catalyst, similar to what we use online, but this has a terminal device that you'd see in a store. Everything runs through this. There's nothing that's really on a computer. You just plug in the details on this. And that wasn't well received, I think, just because of the complexity potentially and just the ease of use. So I'm looking to see if there's any other system available that can do like an iPad kind of thing where you can punch in. Because what we're looking to do in terms of capturing sort of different payments is a lot of different things. There's a whole section for the town clerk, police department, potentially rec department has a lot, and utilities, and then zoning. So there's a lot that we do, and I think managing through the small terminal where you have to plug in everything with a fairly simple number pad might be sort of complicated and annoying. So I'm going to look at Square, you know, and systems like that you see in stores, and can those be used to be able to do this? Because it seems like that's the direction.
The parts dealers that I go to, they do everything on the computer and then
Yeah.
it spits it.
Yeah,
Spits
that's,
it out.
since we're gonna have a lot of these things that we want to accept a credit card for, it seems like we want the easiest system
It
that
would
can
be
take everything.
nice if they could see it so they knew if there was a mistake
Yes.
before they hit.
Yeah, and you're entering particular information, whether it's property taxes and it's a parcel ID, or if it's your water account bill number or any other thing. So I'm continuing to work. We narrowed down what we'd like to see in person, what we'd like to see online, and then we just have to figure out how to meld those two in what
I
system.
was gonna say, can they be the same thing?
Yes,
Okay.
Square can be online as well as in a terminal of their
Yeah,
own, whether it's an iPad or their own. So
Right, yeah.
I continue my research with that. So that's all I have.
Okay. Alrighty. Jessica,
Nothing new to report.
okay, I just have a couple of things. The road trip is at 3:00 next.
3:00.
Next.
I won't be able to join you, I'll be away.
Okay.
What?
We're gonna start here, so the bus
Should
gonna
we
wait
take
across.
video and send it to you?
I have to take off work and you're gonna just bail on us.
So bus just across the street, wait for us.
Now, on Mondays, the farmer's market will be in full swing around that time. They'll be all set
I'll
up.
just tell them
The
park over
parking
by,
spaces.
park
might
over
be
by the funeral.
right, yeah.
And then
It's what, 3 o'clock?
For now.
and two roads are, there's
You don't
There's 2
answer
hours of
emails.
drama.
How do we know if you get it?
Emails I don't answer, no, I answer text.
And then,
Valerie always text messages me.
She knows how to reach.
did I, and Valerie, did I see something where they do some sidewalks this year or no?
I have not been able to.
Okay,
get to
no,
it.
I just thought I saw something, so.
I
And then-
got as far as measuring the Garfield sections, but I just.
I'd like you to take another look at the west side,
Of-
or the south side of West Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
And I know we used to have some kind of a, not a policy written down, but kind of an unwritten
A
policy that,
replacement plan.
well, yeah, but
Mhm.
if the street had 2 sidewalks up it,
Mm.
we tried to move to another street that's poorly.
No.
Because I know you're doing the Garfield Street on the north side, and they got a brand new one on the south side. I get your point there, but I just wanted you to reconsider some others spots, and I'd like to look at some sidewalks on the 15th. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
So
we could
it's
walk
up
it
to the
out.
select board.
Yeah, I know it is, but
Yeah,
you know, you're doing all the work and research, and then maybe the sidewalk plow guy who plows it knows which ones are real bad and which ones are, you know.
He ain't riding this.
No, Eric is, but Eric's gonna go around and trim the trees pretty soon, I hope, on the sidewalk, not wait till October. That's what I've been told by some people. Do we have to wait till October?
As soon as I get back from Greg, I'll let you know.
Okay, and then
Is there a time that you're supposed to trim?
he does it usually, I know in October, right?
No, as far as the trees.
Trees, you're supposed to.
Either
trim them
month of
in the
May
fall
or the spring or
When
fall.
they go dormant.
Yeah.
That's when you're supposed to do it.
So
And
now
I
is
did-
not a good
Unless
time.
you're me, I do
Yeah.
that.
I did talk to Greg Butler, he is
John
interested
Swanson would be
in
appalled.
trimming,
Can't be wait.
So,
trimming all the sidewalks.
Okay.
So he's supposed to let me know.
this fit right into my select board thing with this thing with the ordinance and with the horse thing, is should we, just throwing it out there, should we have a committee of 3? Like Middlebury does, has an ordinance committee. When an ordinance comes, the whole board don't discuss it, they throw it to the ordinance committee and they flush it out. So it takes it off your plate. And, you know, it might take a month or 2 months to flush it out, 3 months, just a thought, don't have to have an answer tonight, just a thought. Just, I get their emails and say they'll send it to the ordinance committee.
That's why they can be in and out in 2 hours, because they pass. the
An hour and
buck.
40 minutes, their meetings are.
They pass the buck.
Mhm.
So town administrators report about.
Oh, gosh, I'm not
No
sure. where to
report,
start.
I'd love to hear just what you got in your TA.
No, there's that.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
I know, I swear to TA.
No, there's a lot going on, and just want to give you, looking ahead at the July 22nd agenda. I believe we had planned to have the public hearing for the bylaw amendments in August. Do we need to, this is a question, have an agenda item on the July 22nd to be clear on what the amendments are that we're putting the hearing for? Because the select board had made some adjustments, the planning commission said, no, go back, make some changes to those adjustments. I just want to be clear if we know what those are, because that's what the public hearing would need to be based on. So I'm wondering if there needs to be
Well,
an
Kevin
agenda.
and I were supposed to do it, we're just supposed to do the memo
Yeah,
to us.
so you should have a memo.
By the July 16th is their meeting, so maybe. they'll
Yeah, I
have a
think
memo
that's
from
what
there.
I'm.
Okay,
I mean, I know there's the one change that they made.
With regard to the ADUs.
Yeah, and
Everything else was fine.
Right,
Okay.
There were
I mean,
no other issues.
there may be some concerns with that, but with
So then
regard
we'll
to the
plan to
waiver
have a-
process and no
Right.
direction to the development review board.
so we'll plan to have a brief agenda
Mhm.
item to clarify or just to be clear on what that amendment to the proposed bylaws
Yeah.
is for the public hearing notice. And the hearing would be on August 13th. Or 12th, whichever.
And then our vote is in November.
Okay, just wanted to double check on that. Eric and I and others met at the fishing platform today for quite a while to review the
Bring
railing
your
plan.
pole,
For
bring
the,
your pole.
no. For the rail plan. And we came up with one and Randy Sargent was there and so we all chatted
Great.
about it and so that's gonna move
It's
forward.
gonna be a beautiful thing.
Well, good.
I'm asking.
Yeah, of course it will.
Okay,
That's the plan.
all I needed to hear.
Yeah. And there's just a lot going on, so. Nothing more to add to my report.
Okay, great. Any other correspondence reports, other business received?
Under the other business stuff, you see the budget status report. I met with Justin last week and went through, I had a number of questions about some of the items in that report, and so he's going to do some research to make some adjustments.
Just look at it.
Yeah, so I'm expecting that there'll be an amended report.
We
So.
have to go back in executive to discuss those, just
Yes, please.
real quick.
You thought you were done.
Make a motion to enter executive session just for one VSA section 313, discuss personnel matters.
Second.
Oh, okay, we're in.
Aye. Good night, Jimmy.
I-